about how happenstance our meeting was at TwitchCon and how I was just like so grateful because I hadn't met anybody in person yet. And we
Oh
literally
yeah.
just randomly walked, like literally just saw each other outside of the convention center. And it was just like, it was what I needed because I was just honestly kind of nervous about like being there and seeing everybody.
Oh, well, you looked very calm and collected, so it didn't show that you were
Well,
nervous.
thank
So. But yeah, I think I was with Shark Geek, and we were waiting. His wife had just gone to
Yes.
park the car or something, and we were like looking, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think that's Melissa in Denial." He's like, "You sure?" I'm like, "Not 100%, but I'm pretty sure." I'm like, just went over. I'm like, "What's the worst that can happen?"
Yeah,
But,
no, it was just what I needed because I was like, okay, because I was so excited for us to have like our science communication meetup and everything,
mm.
but the meetup was literally the last thing on the last day of the convention. And so I was like, I wish that had been at the very, very beginning so that we could have met
Arduino.
each other all and then like hung out throughout the con. And so I was a little like bummed by that because I've described it before where it's like for me, Twitch is all about science communication and people like us and like everyone with TKF. And so when you're walking around TwitchCon, you're like, who are these people? Where are my friends? Where are the people that I watch on
Yeah,
Twitch?
yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like you just suddenly realize you're in this massive world that, for the most part, in some cases, doesn't relate to what you are mainly doing. And so it was really just amazing to just like meet up with you guys first. And then we all went to dinner and it was just so great.
Yeah, it was great. I had a great TwitchCon. It was super fun. Yeah, and it was nice to meet you. And it's always good to see people. And then I'm always amazed at people who, on the one side, as you said, you're just part of this huge thing and nobody really knows. But then occasionally you'll be walking around and someone's like, "Oh, hey, you're an Arduino, right?" Or whatever it is, and I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, I watch your stream. I don't really chat, but I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool." So
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's amazing, amazing feeling. Um, but to get us started, I'm going to give a little bio for all of my friends about Nerdino, and then I'll pull up just the little slides for the discussion that we have, and so that everybody on my half can see. Um, but for everyone who doesn't know Nerdino, this is Nerdino. Originally getting his degree in engineering and business and working for a bank in London, he made the transition to astronomy when he was living in Japan. And he went on to get a PhD in astronomy from the University of Illinois. Nerdino originally started researching white dwarf stars and then cosmology and the cosmic microwave background, which I had to look up because that kind of all those words together kind of broke my brain for a second. Um, he then worked as a professional astronomer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California for about a decade. And now he works as a powerhouse of science communication on Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube, striving to teach the world about space, stars, and the university around us. So I'm just so glad that we get to chat. And my only little background of astronomy and NASA was that my grandfather worked for NASA for a little bit, and my father went and got his aerospace engineer degree. Unfortunately, just the wrong timing from when a lot of things were not going well for NASA,
yeah.
but worked a smidgen of it. And so we have lots of beautiful pictures of NASA of the lots of really amazing things like in my house from my grandfather. And so I know the very, very tiny, tiny basics.
Oh, that's awesome though. Yeah, it's amazing how many people do have family, or they're like, "Oh, my dad worked at one of the centers," or a grandparent or somebody they know, an uncle.
Mhm.
Yeah, everyone has the same reaction. I think it's like, "Oh, it's cool."
All right, let me pull up. I got to get.
But thanks for having me on,
There's.
and yeah, thanks for that great introduction. That's pretty much the whole story. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go now. That was it.
I just have to pull. Let me see. Sorry, I just have to pull up the PowerPoint, which I. Oh, okay, actually.
I'm always surprised. I mean, I know like astronomers are pretty disagreeable with each other, and all scientists kind of are, but I'm always shocked by how many big like arguments and fights there are in archaeology and history about like,
Oh God, I don't even like. There's just sometimes it is kind of crazy, and like it doesn't seem, in some cases it seems like there's lots of stuff going on publicly, and then you don't even have any idea about all the stuff that is going on, like, really behind doors or, like, behind journals, and, I've told this story, occasionally before where the, the I had to, for my thesis, which was on ancient Egyptian dogs, I had to my professor made me write a section at the very beginning of the thesis all about what does a dog look like versus what does a, like, similar animals that you might get confused for a dog. He made me write like a little section about that. And that involved me having to write, like, read, like, at think it was at least 3 papers where 2 people were arguing back and forth about if hyena was a delicacy in ancient Egyptian diet because of like 5 depictions on Old Kingdom walls where it looks like they're being fed, like force fed. And these people just went back and forth being like, one person was like, yes, they're being force fed. And the other person was like, no, they're actually pulling out their tongue. And I'm like, why did I have to read 4 of these papers? And I, like, yeah, it was like the stupidest. I just never realized that like you could do such directed, like, targeting in journal writing. That was like a kind of new thing when I saw that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Um, but let me, this is when I really needed 3 monitors, but we will figure it out. All right. I think, oh my gosh. Do I have it? That's probably going to be the best we're going to get.
Oh, that's good.
um, but yeah, so we can kick it off in either way, of like what we want to talk about first. And
I mean,
I guess
I guess
go
the
for
reason
it.
I brought up the disagreements is because the very first thing I was reading was about this Nabta Playa or Nabta Playa. I'm not sure how you pronounce it exactly, but there was a bunch of people who were like, "Oh, well, it was an ancient sort of river basin, right, with all this water." And there's all these archaeologists arguing about whether they were herders or whether they were nomads or whether they, did they keep
Yeah.
animals and all this other stuff. I was like, oh my gosh. And then you get to the stone circle, and some people are like, yeah, it's just a circle of stones, and other people are like, no, no, it's a calendar, and it's
Yes. Yeah. Nabta Playa is, unfortunately, when you get to pre-dynastic sites, so you get these really, really old sites before you get the reunification of Egypt, where you actually have like one person who's in charge of kind of everyone. It gets like, it gets really complicated, and it's really, really hard to kind of decipher, okay, how are we going to figure out exactly what they're doing, because they're also not, this is like, it's not pre-writing, it's during writing, it's when writing is being developed, and so you're not going to have
mm,
anything there, and that's where it just leaves up to so much interpretation of what it possibly could be. And there are not a lot of stone circles in Egypt, in comparison to like later ones that you do see, obviously in Europe, megalithic structures,
yeah,
and even like this one, which obviously this one is a reconstruction. Uh, this is really small in comparison to like Stonehenge and some of the other really large megalithic structures that you see in Europe. And it's definitely possible. A lot of these things are possible, and we do know that the stars were very important to the Egyptians, and lining up with, it's not even lining up with it. It's just watching the rising of one important star that became the star Sirius, which was called Sopdet for the ancient Egyptians, which was a goddess. So she was a god, or sorry, not Sopdet, Sopdu. Um, like, they are extremely important. They make them become a goddess and a god, and so they line their entire calendar after it. They just follow that star to the T. So it's always possible, but it's really, really hard to kind of say yes or no.
yeah. And it seems like they were mainly, or not, so they had many reasons, but one of the reasons they were so interested in following the stars and also figuring out. It seems as though the alignment of this structure with like the summer solstice
Yeah.
is pretty well supported, and that makes sense from a sort of agricultural point of view, right? You want to know when the middle of the summer is so that you can plan. Um, you can kind of
Mhm.
you can kind of use that to reference the rest of your year, and you know when you need to harvest and
Yeah, absolutely. And that is for the Egyptians, that is the most important thing. And that is why the watching for the rise of that star is the most important thing that they ever needed, because they dictate their entire calendar around the flood season.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so if they don't, my big thing is like the Nile River Valley, the valley itself is a fairly fertile valley, but that's only because of the flood. If the flood did not come, they could not live. There is no life in that area. It would eventually dry up. It is just so dry on either side of the valley. And so if they didn't get that flood, then they could not survive another year. And so figuring out when the flood is going to come is like the most important thing that they could do, because then you can predict how much crops you have to save. You have to predict, okay, when do we have to make sure that anything that's over in this floodplain is going to be saved? Where do we build our houses? Because you got to know, okay, how big did it flood last year? And so all of those things, like honestly, so much of their lives is dictated around that flood. And it's an entire season. And I also want to say it is not a tidal wave type of flood. Like this is something that people don't. I think when you just hear flood, you think of tidal waves. You think of things that are just like a flash flood or like a tidal flood. This is a 3-month flood. This is
Right.
the river just slowly but surely rises over the course of 3 months, and then also goes down over the course of those 3 months. It is just slowly coming down from essentially the monsoons, as well as uh, Lake Victoria, which I know is not called Lake Victoria anymore, but I can't remember the name that it has currently. But there's the White Nile and the Blue Nile, and one comes from the lake and one comes from the mountainous area, which gets a lot of monsoons in this season. And so it's just all of that water slowly flowing north to the Nile Delta, and it's bringing this really fertile, silty soil, which also allows their desert land to be fertile. And so without the flood, they no one would have been able to live there. And so it's very vital and important. And it doesn't surprise me that they start dictating their calendar. They start
Mm.
dictating everything around when that star is going to rise, because they think, and they're usually pretty accurate, that the flood season will start
Yeah,
around
so
when that
people were
star
asking
rises.
about Sirius. So I think so it disappears from the Egyptian sky, right, for about 70 days during the year,
Mhm.
because it's below the horizon. And then when they see it in the morning, the first time they see it in the morning, they know that their flood is very close. That's why they're so
Yes.
interested in Sirius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, so Sirius is definitely the thing that they have to have, and it's the most important factor of Egyptian astronomy. And for a while, it's one of the only things that they really, really focus on with astronomy. There are some other small parts that kind of pop up in different time periods, but most of it is focused on that for a long time, until you kind of get to first intermediate period ish. Then they start sort of expanding and then studying the stars, or at least we'll say this, at least with the documentation that we have surviving, it doesn't appear that they're doing it as much in the like late pre-dynastic and early old kingdoms.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting. And then I put this in here, and I know we talked about this, but about the how the
Yes.
pyramid of Giza is aligned towards the pole star, which I think we should say that all that means is it points north, right? So the
Yeah.
pole star is one possible way that you could use to find north. Obviously, you could use a compass. Um,
Mhm.
and for those who don't know, the pole star changes, right? Because the Earth is actually spinning a bit like a top, right? It has this wobble over, I think it's 22,000 years or 24,000 years, something like that. And so what we have now as our pole star, Polaris, which is not a very imaginative name, but anyway, we have Polaris. Back then, it would have been a completely different star called Thuban, which was in the constellation of Draco. But
That's so cool.
you can rotate the sky backwards and figure out what it would have been then, that they would have been looking at. But I don't think it was clear whether they were really trying to align these things with the star, or were they just trying to align them north south?
Yeah, it's difficult because we don't really know if they have the concept of north and south, because or at least the same concept of north and south that we have today. Because one of the things that's always very confusing when you talk about ancient Egyptian geography is that Upper Egypt is in the south and Lower Egypt is in the north. And they use those terms in ancient Egypt. This is not just a term that we use. And they are mainly going by the flow of the Nile. It's kind of two reasons. Most of the time, it's because it's the flow of the Nile. The Nile is coming from the south and moving to the north, um, or in addition, the south is a higher elevation. It's not much, but it is a higher elevation. And so in our modern mindset, the whole country is flipped in like they are seeing the south as the north, but like again it's hard to see if okay do they understand the difference, are they just going by upriver versus downriver?
Yeah.
um we do know that they lined things with solstices and with the sun. We have lots and lots of evidence of that. We have in Abu Simbel, which is a temple in the very, very, very south of Egypt. On I always forget if it's a summer solstice or the winter solstice, but I think it's the summer solstice. The sun directly goes through the main entrance of the temple and then goes through. There's like four main portions of the temple, and in the very back would be considered the Holy of Holies. And it has statues of three gods and Ramses the Great deifying himself as a god, as he usually does. And that sunbeam just goes straight down that hallway. And it's essentially a very expensive ticket now to get on that day. And they actually, modern Egyptians have reflected this now in the Grand Egyptian Museum, which is
Mm.
their brand new museum out in Giza, where their beautiful entrance to the museum has all these cartouches and has all these names of ancient Egyptian kings. And there's a massive statue of Ramses the Great that would have been, I think, in southern, I think probably for his it's either from Tanis or it's from his Ramesseum, his mortuary temple. And they left one of those squares of the cartouches empty, and they specifically positioned both the museum and the statue and that square so that on that
Mm.
same day it can line up and it can hit his face. And so the we know that they have done that with the solstices. I do also believe Temple of Luxor is also aligned with one of the solstices, but I don't know how different that is than lining it up with true north and sort of how like it well for one, we know that the Egyptians the sun god is like top 5 god. It is like one of the most important gods consistently all throughout their lives. And so it makes sense that they would line it up with the sun,
Mm.
but I always am curious, like, how can they actually know what we consider the solstice, and how is it just that they just didn't pick one time to line it up with that? Like, how do
Yeah.
they determine what that day
So
is?
they must have, I guess, they must have been measuring the height of the sun in the sky, right? Throughout the year, and they must have figured out, oh,
Mhm,
it's when it's at its highest point, that's the longest day, and then of course you can measure it to the lowest point, and I guess like
mhm,
the equinoxes. Um, well, for them, I guess they're pretty close to the equator, so the equinoxes truly would have been fairly close to
mhm.
equal day and night, so they could probably divide the year up that way. Because they did have that they were the first, I think, with the 365-day ish calendar, right?
Yes, and so their 365-day calendar is sorted very differently than ours,
Sure.
but it is a 365 day. So I had to write this down because I always forget it. It's
Yeah.
365 days. There are 12 months, which is interesting, but each 12 months is just 30 days. So it's 3 10-day weeks. And then there are 5 extra days, which are considered the birthdays of the major gods Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. And there's a whole legend along with it where one of the gods banned one of the other goddesses from having more children. And so she negotiated with the god Thoth, the god of the moon, to add more date. Like I think it was sort of one of those things where you just change the wording and it was like, oh, you're not allowed to have any kids during the year. And so she negotiated with him to get 5 more days in the
Ah,
year,
makes sense.
which was pretty funny. And so the the calendar is also then separated by three seasons. So there's the flood season, which is called Aket. Then there's Peret, which is the growth season, and then there's Shemu, which is harvest season. And the new year is around mid-September, which is the beginning of the inundation. So you celebrate those 5 birthdays, and then the flood season should start.
I see. Well, that makes sense. Um,
But yeah, it is interesting that they do get that 365-day calendar, and I always wonder about that because, like, it makes in like, obviously, our months are not all the same length and stuff, and so theirs seems like just a touch more practical sometimes. It's just like, "Oh, yeah, 3 10-week days equals a month, 3 seasons," which makes sense that they don't really have, like, a winter because
yeah,
they're in a
right.
hotter climate. Um, but yeah, uh oh, yes, we do. This is my worst. The only guest lecture that I have not recorded was with, e to the 2 pi I, and we did a whole thing about ancient Egyptian math and talking about their number systems, and it's the only stream that I've lost because I forgot to save it, and it's, like, the bane of my existence because I learned so much from it. Um, but, yeah, there's a lot of different number systems, and Egyptians is, I think 10, but I think, yeah, Sumerians have a completely different there's so many weird ones. He knows so much about, those interesting historical numbering systems.
Yeah, you should. You
I
guys
know,
should.
I lost
You guys should. We should actually. Can we get a shout out for each of the two iPod? One of my
Yes,
mods
we
could do that,
should.
maybe. Um,
I was gonna say, we just need to redo it because I regret that one losing that one so bad because it was so good.
it's so frustrating if you forget, right? Because you've got what, like 2 weeks, and then it's gone. You
Yeah,
forget to
that's
download
what
the file.
happened.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
I have to do it, like, immediately after I stream or else because I've lost a couple, but that was the worst one because it was the first guest lecture
yeah.
and only guest lecture I've lost.
I, and I think with the 2K, it's actually even worse because it's you only have a few days. But anyway, whatever. Uh,
Hi, Remember Beards. Don't interrupt. Absolutely. Um, but I know some people might ask when we get to the Great Pyramid of Giza and other pyramids lining up with things, and I'm just gonna nip this in the bud because I know somebody's gonna ask the question. Um, y'all have maybe seen literally the best way I can describe it is always just like on Facebook, and it's just a picture with the with the pyramids, and it says the 3 pyramids of Giza are aligned with the stars of Orion's belt. Da 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 da. Isn't that cool? And it just says that. And I joke, I like literally I believed this for quite a long time because I knew again about the solstices. I knew about like how they did line things up with certain things. And so I was like, oh, that seems
yeah.
reasonable.
Right. Right. Right.
And then genuinely, I only really discovered this when we did the guest lecture with Moo Hoodles last year. And she asked me that question. She's like, can you confirm or deny this? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go into it. And that is when I stumbled upon just absolutely pseudo archaeological BS that I couldn't even believe that had kind of been so simplified when you watch it and when you see it on social media because it is not that old of a theory. It only goes back to about the 80s and the 90s, and it is called the Orion correlation theory, which you can look up in greater detail. But it not only says that yes, the 3 pyramids of Giza were built to align with the 3 stars in Orion's belt, but that specifically it was lined with Orion's belt for where the stars were 10,000 years ago, not our 3,000 years ago, which we have or 4,000 years ago, which we have for when Egyptologists believe the pyramids are built. Um, and so that like again blew me out of the water. I was like,
Yeah.
wait, you're saying because if you didn't know this actually, so it was originally introduced by a guy named Robert Bauval, but then it was picked up by Graham Hancock, which some of you guys might recognize as a really massive pseudo archaeologist who has picked up essentially any crackpot theory lately and only has really more become famous in the mainstream because of a Netflix show he had last year or 2 years ago or something. And I had no idea that he was even like doing this stuff in the night. Like I did not realize who
He
he was
he's been a
until,
crackpot for a while, yeah.
yeah,
He's got decades of
that shook me.
experience. Yeah.
I couldn't even believe it. I could not believe that he had been connected to this so early. Like it just seems crazy. Um, but yeah, so we know that obviously the stars have in the sky have technically like shifted since the pyramids were built, but the theory is so focused on their belief, which is another theory that is essentially connected into it, that the pyramids were built 10,000 years ago. Um, and it is just tied into the pyramids are older than we actually think they are, all that crackpot theory. Um, but then there's also so much more to this theory, in which the Sphinx is supposed to be the constellation Leo, and the Nile is supposed to be the Milky Way. When actual astronomers looked at this, they were like, Leo's on the other side of the Milky Way from Orion. They're not even like next to each other. Like it just doesn't work. It just doesn't line up like
Yeah.
to what it would like. It would literally be that the whole like everything just changed. And to top it all off, the constellation of Leo, the concept of that constellation as Leo and as a lion was not introduced into Egypt until the Ptolemaic period, because those like the constellations as creatures or as animals, and then kind of getting into astrology, was not brought into Egypt until the Greeks, who stole it from the Babylonians. Um, so yeah,
So
it's
I
crazy.
I actually found a good astronomical reference to this. I don't even want to
Mhm.
call it a. I mean, it's not really even an issue, right, for most scientists. But
No.
yeah, there's a link there to a thing that goes over it and shows that actually they don't even line up with Orion unless you invert one or the other of
Yes.
them, and like it's. And then of course you get into like those same people think that there was technologically advanced civilization that lived in the pyramids, and it's
Yeah.
like it's
It's
all part of the same thing. It's
it's all
incredible.
part of the it's all just part of this grand scheme, and my favorite part about it is that they don't have any actual explanation of like who did this, like who did the building. Like they don't say it. Like they just don't say it out loud. They're just like, yeah, it's 10,000 years older than we think it is. I'm like, okay, so who did it? And like you cannot tell if they're going to go the aliens theory,
Right.
or if they're going to go the ancient Europeans who came in and killed all the Egyptians, so it's actually white people, which also just aliens theory, which is like my favorite thing, is that all alien conspiracies, especially involved with Egypt, but also with Mesoamerica and stuff like that, they're all racist theories. And so that's always a fun like turn that you can take with it. Um, but yeah, they never really explain it. They just never really say anything, and then to top it all off, they only ever talk about the pyramids of Giza. They
Mm.
never talk about any of the other ones.
Yeah, it's
Um, I I get very cocky sometimes. Like I'm always like, if somebody came up and like said it to me in person, like I feel like I'd have enough like, which I typically am not that type of person, but like I have my number one thing where I'm just like, oh well, what about the pyramid of Djoser? What about the pyramid of Teti? What about the northern pyramid of Maguzma? Because like nobody knows that pyramid because it wasn't finished. But like they don't care about any other one. They only care about those three.
yeah,
And technically just the big one.
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. And that just it also goes into a lot of normal Egyptology. A lot of regular Egyptology has only really been focused on those three, and you don't get a lot of modern studies on any of the other ones. Um, and it's just kind of like, well, I mean, it's what people like,
Yeah,
but
that's what they
there
want,
are so
right?
many other things.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're here, Melissa, to teach us about all the other things as well. You see, if
Might as well.
it.
Yes, yes, Otto. So technically, there are more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt. They're just all really small. They are not. I would not. I don't like sometimes calling them like pyramids because in comparison, they are very very small. They are essentially just like large tombstones in the saints. Yeah, but you're right, it's not the size of the pyramid that matters. That is true.
Should we
My
go on to
favorite thing was
the
yeah,
next slide? Yeah.
um yeah, my favorite thing was when my dad and I went to Egypt, we went into the Pyramid of Teti, which is a really small pyramid, and it's technically like a ruined pyramid, and every time I tried to remind my dad about it, he was like, "What pyramid was that?" And I was like, "You know, the one that just looked like a hill." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that one." Because it just like God bless it. It just like looks like a little tiny hill. It's so small in
That's funny.
comparison.
But then you think about how many people probably died making that tiny hill and dragging all that stone
Probably.
there. Right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And all the pyramids that just collapsed under the weight of them. Yeah. It I love pyramids, like, they are cool. They are not, like, my one of my main points of interest, but it is just a fascinating, uh, trajectory of, like, both science and technology and, like, and engineering, but then also, pure laziness, which is, like, kind of one of my favorite things, is that it's like you start with a mastaba, which essentially is Arabic for bench, and it's these bench-shaped tombs that they do in the pre-dynastic period. And then one dude, Imhotep, is like, "What if we put the mastabas on top of each other?" And so he develops the step pyramid, and then somebody goes, "Why don't we fill in those steps and make a smooth-sided pyramid?" And, like, it's just that very logical, very easy trajectory, and then it just goes severely downhill because they make the pyramids of Giza, and Khufu dies before his pyramid is done, so his son Khafre has to finish him while also starting his own pyramid, and then Khafre dies before his pyramid is done, and so then Menkaure is like, "Well, I'm gonna build a really small pyramid, mostly because I have to finish my dad's pyramid, but also because the plateau completely dropped off, and I don't have the space to do it." And then you get to the Middle Kingdom, and they get so purely lazy where they are taking stones from the other pyramids and building their pyramids with rubble on the inside, and so they just all collapse. Like, literally, there's not a pyramid in the Middle Kingdom that's, like, a nice one. Like, they're almost all fully collapsed or unfinished in that case. Yeah, it's just a very nice little arch
See,
of,
more
like
more money, more problems. See.
absolutely, absolutely. So, as we were saying, it kind of a lot of the bigger astronomy, or at least the preserved parts that are texts that are talking about it, they kind of emerge you right here, like 1500 BCE, which is around the first intermediate periods. This is right after the Pyramid Age and then
Hmm.
before the Middle Kingdom. For those who don't know the crazy timeline that is ancient Egypt. And so we get these astronomical ceilings, we get things called star charts, and some of these are found, like this one is on the ceiling of the tomb of Senenmut, but there's also star charts are found on wooden coffin lids, and these have paintings of ancient Egyptian deities, things called decans, which I have a lot of trouble describing what a decan is, so I might genuinely have to read a definition of it. It's one of those things that's broken my brain a couple times. But then it also has images of constellations, and the decans are 36 groups of stars that divide the 360-degree ecliptic into 36 parts, which essentially means that a decan appears every 10 days. That's what I have written in my notes.
Okay,
We
that
can
makes
follow up
sense.
with more information on decans, but those are one of the always things that is kind of I've struggled to describe in my brain because I don't exactly know what an ecliptic is.
Oh, okay.
Um, um, Thank you, Alex, for putting the links in the chat. Um, a lot of ancient Egyptian stars are shown, and stars or constellations, like groups of stars, are shown as a god standing or sitting on a solar bark, so a boat, and frequently will have like a star as their headpiece. Um, I always love the ancient Egyptian depiction of stars because I jokingly call them starfish stars because they're very long and look like little starfish. Um, and another really kind of important concept to understand of like, did the Egyptians understand what space is and sort of how do they understand the sky? The sky for the Egyptians is a goddess. So her name is Nut. It is spelled like nut. It's pronounced like newt. Um, and she is one of the like earliest deities, and she's sort of in this family tree. So she is like the mother of a lot of really important gods and grandmother of the big trifecta with Osiris and Set. And she is depicted as a woman, a blue woman covered with stars. And you will frequently see her depicted with her feet on the ground. Essentially, she's planking. That's the best way to describe it. She's planking above the sky. And uh she swallows the sun every night, and then gives birth to him every morning. And so he goes through her body as the night sky. Her husband is Geb, who is the god of the earth, and he just lies down kind of underneath her. And then their child Shu, who is the son of yeah, she's more in downward dog. That's a very great way to describe it, Otto. She's not fully planking, but she's kind of in a downward dog position. Um, her son Shu is the god of the air, and he holds her up. So he holds her. He stands on his dad Geb, and he holds her up into
Totally
the
makes sense.
sky. And so it's very very important, like knowing, because again the sun god is like one of the most important gods, and during the night Ra has to fight this giant snake deity called Apophis or Apep. And if he does not defeat Apep during the night, the world will end, pretty much. And so Newt, as a goddess, is extremely important because she is that place. She is both that day and night place where she swallows Ra and gives birth to him every morning. And so you see her depicted everywhere. And technically, like even on this star chart, where you see all of these different stars, that is her. Like she might not be depicted as a woman in that case, but it is her. Um, and you'll see her, you will see like her body on a lot of like ceilings in a lot of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings. You'll see her, she will go the entire length of the ceiling, where suddenly you'll see her face and then the rest of the ceiling is stars, and then suddenly you see her feet. Um, and she is extremely important for the sun deity and life, but it's really difficult to understand if they saw her as space as we
Mm,
see, like if they saw
right,
her as
right.
this infinite space outside of the world. um it's really difficult to kind of contain that concept, even though they obviously saw that the stars are in her, but it's unclear if they understood what a star is, really.
Yeah. Well, and there were many, of course, through the history of astronomy, there was people who believed that it was a sphere with the stars fixed to it for a long time, right? So there was no concept that
Mhm.
there was anything behind it, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
um,
It does, in the pyramid text there is, which is dates to the Old Kingdom, there is a couple lines that talk about when a king dies, he would rise into the sky and become a star. And so it does seem that they understand that it's like it's above them. It is a place that you potentially could go. But what they understood as a star itself is a little bit harder to understand.
I got you. And you mentioned the ecliptic as well. Um,
Mhm.
so the ecliptic is actually super simple. It's just if you imagine as the Earth goes around the sun, if you imagine just drawing a plane through the orbit, right? That orbit is in a
Okay,
plane. That plane is the ecliptic.
gotcha. Okay.
So it you could think of it as and it extends to infinity. It's not just it's not just
Yeah,
around the Earth. So you can then project that onto the sky from the Earth, and you'll
gotcha.
essentially see it as the path of the planets and the sun across the sky. They'll be somewhere close to the ecliptic, obviously, because and like some of the planets are slightly, they're at slightly inclined orbits, so they're not always exactly
Mhm.
on the
Yep.
ecliptic. But once you get a sense of like where the sun and the moon are going across the sky, that's kind of the
Mhm.
ecliptic. And that's always the first thing the reason I use it is when someone says, "Is that a star or a planet?" I always look and I'm like, "Well, is it close to the ecliptic?" Because if it's like somewhere else in the
Got
sky to
it.
the ecliptic, I know it's not a planet. And then if it's towards the ecliptic, I'm like, "Oh, now I have to figure it out." but but it's like a good
Got it. Okay, yeah. That makes
It's
a
a
lot
good
of
check.
sense.
So yeah, so it is this track. You know, there is a way of projecting it onto the sky.
Yeah. Okay.
It's super easy.
That's very interesting. Yeah, so it appears that Decans start to sort of appear in the first intermediate period. I find that it's sometimes very hard to distinguish when, like, we talk about ancient Egyptian astronomy because so much of it is brought by the Greeks and the Romans.
Yeah.
And so it is sometimes hard to really decipher, okay, what when are we talking about this? Sometimes. But yeah, and a lot of things I did a video recently about astrology specifically and having to talk about how, like, everything that you see that has like that you will find star charts of Egyptian astrology, and I'm like, there's no such thing as Egyptian astrology. It's just Mesopotamian astrology that was taken by the Greeks and then brought to Egypt. And there's like very little, sometimes they made little changes to animals that are in the area. Like I think Ursa Minor was a jackal
Oh, I see. Yeah, sure.
instead of a bear and stuff. But like it's not, there's very, very little things that are inherently Egyptian that come from it. And I think that's also just because people don't have a great concept of what was life like for the Egyptians during Greco-Roman rule. Because there are definitely parts that there is that native Egyptian culture. There are definitely smaller cities and some of
Mm.
the oases and such, but there are also these really big hubs of Greco-Roman people living there in Alexandria, in the Fayum Oasis, and the both Ptolemaic Greek pharaohs and the Roman emperors are actively building Egyptian temples, like in the Egyptian style, with them depicted as an Egyptian god, like
Right.
a king. And that just like takes the it just completely mixes up people's perceptions of like, no, the Dendera ceiling. Dendera is this amazingly beautiful temple, which is probably the second most well preserved temple because it still has a ceiling and it has, oh my god, it's just like the entire ceiling is just covered with depictions of Newt and depictions of all of these gods and all of these constellations in these solar boats, but it's inherently just a Ptolemaic temple. Like Cleopatra and her son Caesarion are on the side of the temple. Um, so it's in an Egyptian style, but it has actual Egyptian, like it has so many aspects of it, but it's such a melting pot that I think people don't, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine how that culture mixing is affecting what is Egyptian and
Right.
what is being
Yeah, for
imported
sure.
in
And
as a
that happened
concept.
over, you know, I don't know, like 1,000 years, right? Or 700 years or something. So it's a long, there's this long
Yeah.
mixing. And during that time, the Greeks' ideas about the sky and astronomy were changing as well. So like they
Mhm.
were sort of learning and coming up with new
Yeah.
models, and eventually you end up with the Ptolemies, you know, the this model. He manages to make this model of a geocentric solar
Mhm.
system that actually kind of works ish. I mean, he has to fudge a few things, but it sort of
Ish.
works. Yeah. Well, it's wrong, right? So it's not going to work perfectly.
Well, it's wrong, but it worked at the
But the
time.
church thought it was pretty cool because that was, you know, that was important to them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, they were for I mean for almost 2,000 years, right? We had um this idea of perfect circles and perfect spheres, and
Mhm.
a geocentric solar system um, from the ancient Greeks, and then, as you said, they were mixing with, you know, the Egyptians and the Romans, and there was a whole, well, and then of course a lot of this was lost, and a lot of the information was
Yeah.
lost in the Dark Ages, and then you come back, and there's sort of the Arabic astronomy is kind of like
Mhm.
dominant because they're the only ones that actually preserve
Yeah.
any of the knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's like super interesting, but it's really, I think, difficult to, yeah, like you said, you can't really say, oh, this was an Egyptian idea, and this was a Greek
Yeah.
idea, and this was a Roman idea, and his. There are a
Yeah.
few like pieces of it that you can attribute to individual people, but
Mhm.
um,
Yeah. I've used this example all the time where I really hate when this is especially again like weird social media blogs and stuff where they say like the Egyptians invented blank, and then when you look into it you realize, oh, it's during only discovered during the Ptolemaic period, and I'm like, no, like give me something earlier. The big one that somebody found me an article saying that the Egyptians invented bowling because archaeologically somebody found a lane with pins of some sort. And I'm like, but when does it date to? And I was like, oh, it's the Roman period. I'm like,
Mm.
no, just because it's in Egypt doesn't mean that they invented it. So I get really hung up with that a lot because there is a pretty big, like, technological and scientific jump when the Greeks get to like, Alexandria was this huge hub for science and
Right, right, right,
technology,
right.
in the Ptolemaic period, and, like, not to be mean to the Egyptians, they didn't have really one like that at least we know about today, and we don't know almost any ancient Egyptian philosopher or ancient Egyptian engineer. Like, we have Imhotep. Imhotep was and the thing is that's funny is that we know about him because he designed the step pyramid of Djoser, in the Old Kingdom, in the pre-pyramids of Giza, the first pyramid ever developed, and in the late period, like, literally thousands of years later, he's worshipped as a god. Like, they just are like, "This guy's awesome. He did that," but he also gets all these attributes of being a doctor and a scribe. Like,
Uh-huh.
he gets all these other things that I'm like, "I don't know if we know he did that, but okay, go for it." But yeah, it's like we don't have those names for Egyptian. We don't even have scribes' names or artists' names, which are things that you get recorded, when you look at, the Greek and Roman periods in Egypt and outside of Egypt as well. We have that severely lacking. We don't have a lot of names of people, which is kinda sucky.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, unless they're related to the pharaoh. Like, I think Ankh-Off was an architect of the Pyramid of Khufu, but he's literally Khufu's brother. So, like, was he really the architect or was he given the title? Like, we don't have a lot of the big names of engineers or
wait,
architects or something.
are you saying that people in the government in ancient Egypt were giving jobs to their families? That doesn't sound. Are you sure that was happening?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's such a foreign concept. Yeah, no, it's like all the time.
Hmm.
All the time.
Nothing
And again,
changes.
it's like the funny part about it is that it all depends on preservation. I think that is something that universally as a science communicator that you just when you're talking about history, like, I have to be always what if or maybe, or like I have to give that option because who knows, tomorrow we could find the name of an architect of one of the pyramids who's not related.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
at the moment, we don't have anything else to say. And so it's uh it's all based on what is preserved, and the older you look, the less we have preserved.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good point because the typical scientist is always going to hedge and always be like, well, whereas your typical pseudoscientist or somebody with a conspiracy
Yes.
theory can just be like, this is how it was, this is 100% right, you people are idiots, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, and then your scientists are like, well, it could be, we don't know, we're not sure, and it's like, it's tough to.
I will never be exact. I will say possibly or probably in my videos like a bajillion times. Hi, Draw Curiosity.
Hey, draw,
You didn't miss that
good to see you.
one. But yeah, it's something that is horrible. Like, obviously, there's so many
Mm,
other pseudoscientists, but for history, it's just like, no, like, no. And as an archaeologist, I've talked with other archaeologists about this. There is like a deafening anxiety that I'm pretty sure many archaeologists and probably more historians, but I feel like archaeologists are one of those because we are the physical historians. We are the people that are actively pulling up things, and we are those interpreters. We have to look at what we find in the soil, both objects and features, and have to then reinterpret it and then pass it on to the public. There is just like a deafening anxiety that we are always wrong.
mm,
And that, like, I've always, like, I pick up something and I'm like, that this is obviously a pencil, but what if it's not? What if it was used completely differently? Like, there's just like this horrible, like, what if it's not feeling that you have in your brain that it's just like you're that person that is interpreting it. And like, we can only interpret what we can. And that doesn't mean that it's going to change. Like, that means that somebody can go and find something else and can completely change the
yeah,
course of that
sure.
interpretation. But it's just so like, ugh. It's just an anxiety that is just always there, and I did a video about the Ankh, which is just a symbol of life. And somebody asked me, like, what is the actual like hieroglyph representing? And there are so many theories. I didn't even realize that there were that many theories. Oh yeah, we love our it was used ritually because it was used ritually either actually does mean yes, we think that was used ritually because we have some other textual source that is telling us that it was used ritually, or we don't know. Those are the two options. Those are the
That's
two
funny.
options sometimes. It's just like it could be anything. It could be so many different things. But like so many people like I essentially told that Alan Gardner, who wrote a ancient Egyptian dictionary and wrote a sign list where he went and defined what every single hieroglyph was. He says that this is a sandal strap. And that essentially your ankle goes through the hole, these sides go around the side of your ankle, and then this one goes in between your toes. And it looks weird. It doesn't look like a typical like flip-flop strap, but when you do look at shoes of Tutankhamun, it is that shape. It does have those two little extras that kind of go off to the side. But then there's so many different people have theories. So I just listed out all these theories. I did not even give a preference of my own theory. I was just naming people's names and naming what they were thinking. People in the comments went wild. Oh my god, so wild. So many different other theories, and some legitimate and some just like completely wrong. And then people just like actively arguing and being like mad. And I'm like, it's all up for interpretation, my friends.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
like things can change. Except I was very adamant about certain ones, which one was everyone kept saying it's the key to life. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by key? Do you mean a physical key? Because guess what? Ancient Egyptians didn't have physical keys. So it can't be the key to life. Like that's just a phrase that we have now. That's not has anything to do with it because they didn't have locking doors. Like it just that like simple logic in my brain is like it can't be the key to life because they don't have keys. I don't know how simpler I can get.
That's funny.
Oh
Um,
yeah, they were roommates. They were roommates. Yeah, that always gets brought up too. It's again, you don't wanna go crazy. I always use the term of caution with the pregnant mummy. If you guys on my side of the channel remember, this, group in Poland had a mummy in their museum, and they did a CT scan, and they thought it was pregnant, and they wrote a whole paper and published that paper, and then it turns out that they never got a CT technician to actually look at the CT image, and it turns out she wasn't pregnant. So they had to do a whole redaction of stuff. And I'm like, that's why it's sometimes easier to step in with a little cautious foot at first. Because yeah, that was a big thing like a couple years ago.
Yeah, but I think also that it's important that those kinds of things happen, right? Because
True.
that's how science actually moves forward, right? We've many times in the past we've had ideas that were not quite right, but they were at least on the right
Mhm.
path, right? And then the next scientist comes along and is like, no, 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 that's not how that works. And it's like it works like this, but it's an iterative process. Occasionally you do get
Mhm.
these big steps, right? Where somebody like
Yeah.
Einstein comes along with general relativity or whatever. But for the most part, and especially these days, it's kind of an iterative process, and you're almost going to be wrong by definition because we don't know what the answer is usually. We're just
Mhm.
interpreting data. We're using especially like in astronomy, for example, right? We're making observations. We're interpreting data. There's noise. There's a galaxy that we have to look through when we're observing things, which makes things complicated. And I don't think I don't think being wrong is necessarily, everybody's
Mhm.
always like, oh, scientists need to make up their mind. Which is it? It's like, well, we thought it was that, but now we think it's this, and that's totally fine. We had a meeting,
Yeah.
everyone tore that paper to shreds, and now we have a new paper. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. In that case, Otto, no, it was not a it was not a big poop. It was all of her internal organs that had been mummified and then placed back into her abdominal cavity. But I will admit the CT scan does look like a baby. It's just you would think with a CT scan you would be able to see some bones. Some. Like it wouldn't be perfect, but no, it was just all of her organs in a little pouch that just had these kind of little tiny arms and such. But oh, Yeah, we don't want to talk about the Italian scientist. I forgot I forgot about the colorblind member of the group, which is
I mean, there is also just bad
uh
science, right? There are just people out there who are not
yeah.
good scientists, and like, there's
Yeah.
that too.
And that is unfortunately those Italian scientists who are like notably known to be like UFOologists and submitted a paper to a journal where it apparently just approves your paper after like 24 hours and publishes it. And yeah, so we love all of that amazing work that they did that now gets me a bajillion questions of what's under the pyramids. And I just get to lovingly say
Sad.
bedrock. Bedrock.
Yeah.
Bedrock is under the pyramids.
Oh, it's funny. Um,
Yeah, it's always a journey. It's always a journey to get to the truth, and it is unfortunately one of those things that there is so much things about history and about the world that we'll never know, and it annoys me to high heaven, but there's so many things out there in the world that we will never have an answer for, we will never have or at least a concrete answer for,
right.
um, and especially when it comes to history, it's just there are things that are lost, and people really I think sometimes the general public really think that we will always find evidence of stuff, and there is plenty of places where evidence will never be it will never be preserved, and we will never be able to get that answer, essentially.
All right.
Um,
And
Good question, addicted.
so
Uh,
there's a whole bunch. I've actually given a different talk about if you
mhm.
want to know what goes in between here and what we're about to talk about. I actually have a different talk that I gave. I think it was on Tofu's stream. I did Tiny Toxic Tofu had a thing for Newton's birthday, and we basically did
Oh,
everything.
cool.
We went from ancient Egypt very briefly, like in much less detail than we just talked about, but we went through um, essentially every culture and all of the stuff between up to Newton, and we talked about Newton's
So cool.
theories and Kepler and all that stuff. It was super interesting, but we're gonna skip over like 2,000, yeah, about 2,000 years of astronomy right now.
A decent amount.
Because I thought it would be interesting to contrast, like, the sort of, I don't want to say disinterest in astronomy. Well, yeah, they were sort of disinterested in astronomy, right? They didn't. It wasn't until the
Yeah.
Greeks came along and were like, "Hey, you can tell a lot of stuff by looking at the sky, right?" And they were like, "Yeah, we can tell when the river's going to flood." They're like, "No, no, 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 no. I can tell how big
Yeah.
the Earth is, and like,
Yeah.
how far
They
away the
didn't
sun
they
is."
didn't get to it as much. It was not a primary focus of the
Yeah, yeah,
Egyptians. Um, we do have a very cool very recent discovery which hasn't been able to be, like, really interpreted, but everyone kind of is calling it uh, oh my god, the word, astronomy astronomy tower or something. They've described it a couple different ways, but it is more dating to the Ptolemaic period. So they've not been able to like really say anything like distinctive yet about what it actually is. But
I
it was
see.
only discovered a couple years ago. But hopefully, new things coming soon. Be able to give us some more insights into how the Egyptians saw it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And the fact of the matter is also, of course, you can survive quite comfortably without, as long as you know when the river's going to flood. You don't actually have to care that much probably about the.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Egyptians I have found over time are fairly practical people, and they really won't sometimes try a lot of, like, extra stuff, sort of, like, they will just accept what is gonna happen and not really try very hard, like, later, and I think that is they focus on what they wanna focus on,
yeah.
and I typically use that as an example because their pottery is so boring, like, almost all of their pottery 5,000 years, no decoration, nothing, very utilitarian, and I always just say it's like, it's not that they just, like, didn't wanna do cool pottery, it's that they were focused on other things.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
wanted to do other things, and they knew that, "Hey, I don't need to focus on all my pottery being beautiful, it's just pottery." And so they wanted to put in that focus into religion or into mummification or into decorating their tombs. They didn't need to decorate the things of the living,
Mhm.
for example, and so
Yeah.
it's they're very practical in a lot of ways like that. They're just like they only do what they need to do to live and survive in the area that they lived in.
Yeah. Um, How can you have astronomy without the math that follows? So addicted to capping, it depends. It depends what you mean, right? So there's kind of two kinds of astronomy, right? There's observational astronomy and computational astronomy. And if you're talking about observational astronomy, you can make observations of the night sky without really understanding the
Mhm.
math, right? You can figure out that it takes 365 days. I was about to say a year for the Earth to go around the sun. That was it takes 365 days for the Earth to go around the sun. You can plot the positions, um, and then once you start to develop some math, you can actually do other things with those observations, like figure out that a shadow going down a well could tell you, and having somebody who will walk the distance for you to another city can tell you how the
Mhm.
circumference of the Earth and things like that. So yeah, ancient cultures were doing a lot of what we would consider astronomy, if you think of astronomy as the study of the night sky and the study of the universe,
Yeah.
without necessarily needing, you know, general relativity or even
Mhm.
like Kepler's laws or any of that. So, and that took a long time for
Yeah.
that to be developed, for that math to actually be developed, right? The Greeks were still, I mean, Aristarchus came up with the heliocentric model, but the Greeks were trying to fit their math into geocentric models for hundreds of years, somewhat
Mhm.
successfully, it has to be said. But it was complicated. Like they
Yeah.
needed all these little circles within circles, and because
Mhm.
they had to try and explain retrograde motion, and
Mm.
which is difficult if
From what
you.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
from what I remember from we don't have a lot of Egyptian math like preserved. We have a few papyri that are pretty good and they have a lot of they do have like geometry and they have calculus and they have pretty good in comparison to what that I was surprised that they had kind of the knowledge to do that. But what the funny thing that we talked about when we did our lecture with e to the 2 I pi was that a lot of their geometry is the based on the things on the ground. Like it's what is the they had a specific word for the angle of a pyramid. Like how do we calculate that angle? And so like I don't remember at the moment if they had anything that was specific to night sky, at least from what we have preserved, and we don't have a lot. Again, probably up until the Greco-Roman period. Um, they do
Yeah,
have a good amount of geometry
and that
though.
makes sense, right? That with what you were saying before about they're just very practical. It's like, well, I don't need all this math.
Mhm.
I just need the math that tells me like how high the pyramid
Exactly.
is or whatever. Right.
Yeah, and the dates and yeah, they don't need as much of it. But a lot of the stuff was very practical and the papyri that we have preserved, which are always so funny, are they're essentially just a giant list of word problems, which is so interesting and weird. And a lot of it has to do with a lot of papyri that we have preserved from a variety of things are sort of they seem to be giant example sheets for either for people like mathematicians or architects or scribes to learn, like just and in some cases just how to learn how to write. And scribes would just repeatedly write over and over again. And we have sort of these they don't make a lot of sense to kind of us, but they just seem to be these kind of textbooks that a lot of their medical papyri is like that. It's just a giant textbook of every possible ailment and cure for a variety of things. A lot of repetition of like this is the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. And so it is a lot of those papyri. It's like, is this actually like somebody testing out math, or is he just repeating something over and over again just so he can learn how to write and learn how to do math?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like somebody discovering a kid's um, book where they're learning cursive or whatever, right? Like
Very, very much so.
somebody trying to figure
Um,
out, well, what does this mean? Wow, this is interesting. It's like, no, actually, it's just like,
yeah, it is really hard sometimes to like fully kind of determine, okay, wait, what am I actually looking at? Because like a lot of literature stories you'll look at and scholars will describe them as like, okay, this is definitely this papyrus comes from this time period, but this story might come from earlier. And these linguists do this by looking at how certain words are written
yeah,
and the
right.
language of it. And they're like, yeah, it probably is much earlier and I'm like, "Okay, but wow, how do you know that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's because, everyone's just writing these things down and you see mistakes, and you see when you're looking at hieratic, which is sort of a cursive shorthand form of hieroglyphs, you see scribes have handwriting, like, it is
Yeah,
not as, like, you have to reinterpret every single one that you look at because some scribes will just write a certain
Way, yeah,
they'll
yeah,
go with the
sure.
A with the serif on the top or just the A with the circle, and you have to like figure out which one is which. And it's why I never
Yeah.
learned how to read
That's
hieratic.
actually funny, Uncle Bildren. Yeah, that's true. Like, in the
Mhm.
future, historians will be asking why American society in the 20th century was obsessed with the brown fox. And why was the dog lazy?
Why? Why was the
Is
dog
it a
lazy? I
metaphor?
love that.
Is it a metaphor for something in their society? Oh my god.
That is such a good point. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. History is super interesting.
It's a very famous archaeology paper that a lot of archaeology like 101 students read, is all about if like in 100 years or in 1,000 years or something, everyone we go back and research the world around us. Why were people worshiping a double art, an arched M, a golden M? And it's this whole article about
Yeah.
I think it talks about like toilets as well, and it's just like, why does everybody have two or three toilets per house, and like what is this used for? And it's this completely reinterpretation of like, if none of that gets recorded for 1,000 years and you don't know what McDonald's is everybody going to think it's a cult? And it's like, I mean,
And would they be wrong?
yeah, potentially, depending on what's preserved. If somebody took all the fryers out and the registers, it kind of looks like a church. Like, it's like all these weird things that you could just completely reinterpret very
We
easily
worshipped the
without.
god Ronald.
Yes, yes, the clown named Ronald. Absolutely. What was the fixation with apples? Yeah, a lot of apple things with a bite out of it. Why does the apple have a bite out of it? Yeah.
And why do we find
Um,
so many humans with burnt mouths?
yeah, yeah. And it is a common thing, Otto, that I've said where people will jokingly say like, "Oh, you're gonna dig up my grandma, or you're gonna dig up me one day," and I'm like, "No, I'm probably not, because more than likely you're going to be buried in a cemetery that's going to have a record, and like I'm going to know where that cemetery is, and you're going to get a plot, and I'm not going to go bury up that cemetery unless something needs to be moved or there's scene of a crime or something like that." I only really say that people will only be actively digging up our time period if something cataclysmic happens in which that knowledge is lost, because we are in a world where things are being recorded like tens and thousands more percent more than they are in the
Mm,
past. And so, and technically we do technically excavate now because we find lots of candy wrapper trash and lots of normal trash, and as my collections manager at our museum says, 20th century trash and junk. And she discovered that in her collections there's a giant piece of a modern toilet, and she says, if I can start deaccessioning things, this is the first thing to go,
yeah,
because we don't need giant chunks of a gross toilet in our collection. And so the world will only really have to actually start actively investigating and researching our time period archaeologically if something crazy happens in between now and then.
yeah, for sure. That's funny. I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. No seashells. Is there any correlation between the earliest astronomy, the discovery of the planets, that can be thought of today as being used for worship? Um, I mean, many ancient civilizations used to think that, like Melissa was saying, right, about the Egyptians thinking that of gods, like the sky was a god and the earth was another a god.
Mhm.
And there are many other cultures that revered the planets, or they gave religious significance to the planets and eclipses, especially, right, and things like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I don't know about it depends what you mean by worship, especially worship with a
Mhm.
capital W. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what you're thinking of, but yeah, I mean, a religious significance of, and then astrology, right? There's a whole other
Yes.
thing of trying to make predictions about people's
Mhm.
lives and what would happen to them after they died and all this other stuff. So, uh,
Yeah, it's for the Egyptians, at the least, I don't think they understood any other concept of the other planets. Like, I think they really only had stars, and they might have thought that a planet was a star. I'm not 100% sure if we have kind of the written traces of like the difference between the planets and the stars for the Egyptians, but obviously
yeah,
we know that the Greeks and Romans, or I think typically more the Romans, associate Venus with the planets and such. And so they have like that closer correlation. But I would probably posit, at least with that example, that I'm pretty sure the gods sort of appeared before the main discovery of planets, but that is that is more in my lacking of knowledge of what time period excuse me, that they like discovered that these were planets versus stars, which
Yeah.
I don't know when they kind of did that. Oh, excuse me. Oh,
Mnemonics.
my
So they
voice.
want to know why all astronomers have very elegant mothers. Uncle Bill, is that what you're saying? That's funny. Um,
Oh, that is funny.
um,
There, in reference to how much would be recoverable, um, archaeology would have to be, so like let's say let's posit that, I don't know, there's some sort of big cataclysm, da da da, the internet's out, the world has no internet, we unfortunately probably devolve, like just thinking about how the world would change, a lot of the Western world would change without all of those. If you are then actively excavating and you are finding things with
mm,
CDs, or you, I don't know, you find a flash drive, like there's a potential that some of this stuff can, like, could be recoverable like digitally, but more than likely most of what it would be is that it's the, again, the interpretation of the archaeologist of like looking through all of these different components, and the way archaeology typically works is you have layers that we call stratigraphy, and it's different layers of the soil, and they, all of those artifacts that are kind of placed in that same layer typically date close together, unless it's in a mixed context, which sometimes if you're in a field, if you're in a field that's been plowed, that plow comes in and just like stirs everything up. And so a lot of it is that reinterpretation, but it also relies on, one of the biggest things that we rely on as archaeologists is the research that previous people have done for us. And so we use a website that some guy wrote. He has an entire list of all the different types of bottles and what every little embossed image on a bottle, like if it has a D at the very bottom, that means it's made in this certain city. If it has a seam, that means it's a mold made bottle versus a blown bottle. Those are in books and on the internet. And so if those are not accessible, there might have to be a whole new research reinterpretation if you don't have that access to be able to kind of give you those answers. And so in archaeology today, we have established ourselves very well with the previous research of other people. It would be a wild option of like what would happen in the future if we did not have access to those things. Would we restart? Would we be able to get back to that point? Or would we completely and utterly, again, like reinterpret McDonald's as a cult site? Like it's kind of entirely possible because you don't know, you are basing it off of what people have done before us. And if we don't have that, anything's game, to be honest.
so addicted to capping. I mean, can astronomy be used to predict natural disasters or even death? Well, not death, obviously, because astronomy can't predict those things. I mean, I guess it could predict the death of your planet if a giant asteroid was heading towards it, but but
True.
and that would be a natural disaster. But I mean, like we were saying before, though, the Egyptian, if you consider the flood, it was an annual event,
Hmm.
so I'm not sure you would call it a natural disaster, but it would have been a disaster for them. So they were using astronomy to predict when that flood was going to happen. But you can't predict
Yeah.
like an earthquake or whatever from astronomy, particularly that we know of anyway.
No.
Currently, there I am hedging again.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe you can, but we don't know how. If you can, so
I would assume, like, I don't know how much it is in connection, but I know that like tides and stuff are via like the, like, would that be considered something that could be predicted if we notice something is going on with, see, this is my lack of knowledge of the moon, like isn't the tides and the moon
yeah, for
connected?
sure,
And
for sure.
okay, so maybe on that
Yeah,
end,
you can predict
one
the
of
you
one
can
of
predict
the
the tides certainly, and
mhm.
eclipses, right? We can predict eclipses, but
Yeah,
those
and it,
don't
mhm.
those don't have any significance beyond the moon
Yeah,
coming in between. Like the
yeah.
eclipse itself. They're not predicting the end of the world, as I'm sure some ancient civilizations believed or whatever.
Yes, so we were talking a little bit earlier. There's not a lot of like we're mainly talking about Egypt because that is my main focus. And we talked a little bit about there are some things called star charts that date to the first intermediate period, and then we possibly have places like Nabata Playa, which have stone features that might be aligned with the stars. A lot of the depictions of stars in ancient Egypt are very general, though. It is literally just it's actually very even. All the stars are exactly even, and essentially on giant grids. But there are some. The Egyptians really only focused on a few stars, mainly Sirius, which was a god that they when that star rose, they could expect the annual flood. Um, and the moon is a really big thing in Egyptian culture. It doesn't get depicted very much, which is kind of interesting, but the moon god is Khonsu. And there's also Thoth is also sometimes associated with the moon. And they are very involved, but I don't know. That's a very great question. I don't know how much they actually associated with other parts of astronomy and other parts of it. I'd have to look into that because I've never really seen the moon depicted as much as like the sun is depicted.
Mm.
And almost always, like Kansu can be depicted with like a full moon disk, so a full circle, but they also have a lot of crescent moon iconography, I think, in hieroglyphs as well. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into that if he's featured on star charts or on like even the Dendera ceiling. I'm thinking about it, and I feel like I've only really seen depictions of again the goddess Newt uh eating the sun and then giving birth to the sun, but like you would think, oh, she is then the night sky, but there's not really typically a depiction of the moon in her body in that night sky, which is really interesting to think about. Hmm. I'm gonna have to
Um,
posit that one.
you
It's a good
know,
thought.
I have to keep a pen and paper next to my desk so that
I
when chat
know.
asks me questions, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, that's a hard one. The moon is definitely important, but he's not nearly as important as the sun. The sun is consistently important throughout the entirety of ancient Egypt. That's another problem that you don't get is that things change throughout the time period of ancient Egypt. Like, there's nothing that is always. There's very little things that are always important and are always equally important over that 5,000 years. Not that we know of. There's really, I think, only like one depiction of an ancient Egyptian map. Um, and I think it's in Turin. There's very very little depictions of ancient Egyptian maps, and like with scribes and with artists, we don't get their names, so no names.
Yeah. Again, all practical, right? Like we might need a
Yeah,
little
all
map here of where we're
practical.
going to put the next pyramid, but other than that, like,
Yeah, we have like one map, and it's just like it's so crumbled. I remember. I think it's in Turin. Turin has a really large papyrus collection, and like we have it's the concept of what the ancient Egyptians saw as their world is very very self-centered. The ancient Egyptians, I mean, this is like I always say this, like I like that they are probably one of the most like prejudicial and like very self-centered like ancient cultures, but like a lot of ancient cultures were very focused on themselves. But a very large concept within ancient Egyptian life is order versus chaos, and that you have to have both at the same time. And so like the god Osiris is a god of order. The goddess Maat is a personification of that order, and then the god Set is a god of chaos. But they saw themselves as order, that the ancient Egyptian world is order, and then everyone else outside of it, including the animal world, is chaos. And so they had a very low perception of most people outside of their own. So, oh yes, thank you, Alex. Yeah, the Turin Papyrus map. That's the one I was talking about. Did they even acknowledge things outside their view in the world? Sometimes, but not a lot. Mostly them defeating enemies and stepping on them and chopping off their hands and other things.
as one
Lots
does
of
with one's enemies.
yeah, as one does. Lots of war. Lots of lying about winning the Battle of Kadesh. Lots of just sugarcoating everything that they did and not really being truthful. But
So
then also like
once again, not much has actually changed.
no, no, not at all, not much at all. Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't hear about other via the Egyptians. You don't hear about other cultures often,
Mm,
and if you do, you are not hearing about them typically in a good light. Um, and so yeah, uh, yeah, it's a little soft, but yeah, there's just not a lot of talk about other cultures, and especially because the other thing is you also have Egyptian names for each of these cultures, so sometimes it's really even hard to connect them to another culture that we know about. Which everyone keeps asking me about the sea peoples, and that is one of those that we will cover soon in next month's lecture. No, 2 months in 2 months. But like they we don't have their names because they are just known as the sea peoples and the Hyksos people, which literally just means foreigner. Like,
mm,
great, thank you so much for telling us who they actually are.
yeah. Uh,
Any Egypt questions left over? Because we're gonna move on to more Nerdino's side of things.
and we can
Yeah,
always
they
come
never
back as well
bothered to ask.
if people have questions. We can
Yeah,
always you can always bring them up.
absolutely.
We're not irrevocably moving on.
Yes, very true.
Time we can make time go backwards. I think
Yes.
that works. Um,
Ah, yes, Rahab. We briefly like bounced over that. So their zodiac. There's no purely Egyptian zodiac. It is the Greeks stealing it from the Babylonians and then bringing it to Egypt during the Greco-Roman periods. There's no zodiac prior to the Greeks taking over Egypt. And they do make some changes to give it like to where it the hippo goddess and Anubis or a jackal are featured in the zodiac, but beyond that, it is almost identical to the zodiac that we know today, which again comes originally from Mesopotamia and then through Greece.
all right.
Yeah, very interesting, very weird. All
This is
right,
it
I want to
from
know what
that
this
to
is
this. So this
because
is
this looks wild to me.
this is actually the Nancy or this okay, so this is an artist's impression, I should say, but this is an artist's impression of the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which is going to launch at the end of August and
Okay,
will be the cutting edge of observational astronomy, space-based observational astronomy. Um,
very cool.
it's super cool. Yeah. So think of it like okay, well, I could go to the next slide, but think of it like Hubble
Hmm.
on steroids. I think that launch date might be wrong actually. I think it's August 30th. I think I might have made a typo, but anyway, it's the end of August. Um,
That's okay.
it was a mission that yeah, it has a wide field camera, so it's a 300 megapixel camera. And
Whoa.
it will have the same sharpness as Hubble. Huh. Well, corrected Hubble after we fixed Hubble. It will have the same sharpness as Hubble, but it will have 100 times greater field of view. So this thing is going to be
Whoa.
is going to be observing massive chunks of the sky. Um, that's sort of that's kind of it's one of its advantages or features is this wide field of view, and it's going to
Hmm.
use that field of view to do all kinds of cool stuff, like find exoplanets and directly
Whoa.
image them for the first time. So it's going to have a
Wow.
coronagraph on it. A coronagraph is an instrument. So we use coronagraphs to measure this to observe the sun here. It's essentially there are different ways of creating coronagraphs, but it's essentially just like a telescope with a that has a or an instrument that has a spot that you can put over the star, the central star, or the sun, or whatever it is
Hmm.
you're trying to block out. So you cut the light out. You cut as much of the light
Okay.
out as possible from the star so that you can actually see what's around it. So, like when we have an
Hmm.
eclipse of the sun, you can suddenly see the corona, right? You can see all this stuff streaming
Yeah.
out into space, and you realize, oh yeah, it's actually like goes millions of miles. You can do that
Mhm.
artificially. You can kind of have an artificial eclipse, and by doing that, you could observe things like planets only around fairly nearby stars, obviously, because that angular
Mhm.
separation is going to be quite small, so you're trying to pick out an object that's very close, and it wouldn't be like an Earth. It would be a big. It's going to find mostly like bigger Jupiter-type planets that are further away from the star and stuff.
Ooh,
But anyway,
so
it'll be
cool.
directly imaging potentially hundreds or thousands of exoplanets, which is going to be super cool. And that's so that it has two instruments. That's the coronagraph. We'll talk about the instruments in a minute, but in more detail. But
Mhm,
the other job that it's going to do with this 300 megapixel camera is probe the history of the universe. So we want to find out the effects of dark energy. So as you may know, right, we there's dark energy, there's dark matter, and then there's like baryonic regular matter, like the stuff that we're all made up from. And a
mhm,
tiny fraction of the universe, it seems as though a tiny fraction of the universe is the stuff that we're made out of. Um, Most of the
mm,
universe seems to be in this dark energy, and then there's a decent chunk in this dark matter as well. And we don't really know. We have some ideas, but we don't really know what either one of those are. So
mhm,
we're hoping that with 90 Grace Run, we'll be able to measure the effects of dark energy. We'll be able to check Einstein's theory of relativity with unprecedented. I mean, it's passed pretty much all the checks that we've thrown at it so far with all the different um, experiments that we've done. But this will be another, a further check, and it'll also be able to tell us about whether space-time is curved or flat,
mm.
and which way it's curved. It could be curved like a saddle, or the opposite way, which it seems
Whoa.
as though it's probably. It seems as though flat is kind of preferred. But I mean, when you think about where we were with camera technology, even like 20, 30 years ago,
Mhm.
this is going to be kind of an absolutely an amazing instrument, and it's going to go out. We'll talk about the orbit as well. So it's actually leaving Earth. So you may have seen recently that there's been a lot of um, talk about light pollution from satellite trails in scientific
Mm,
data. So um, there's a bunch of satellites, scientific satellites, like for astronomy and stuff, that are in low Earth orbit or are in an Earth orbit, and so they're looking out, and they're not necessarily at the top, right? So there's like this band,
yeah.
and if your satellite is at the bottom and you're looking out through a bunch of other satellites, and there's now tens of
Mm,
thousands of these things, then these trails start to go across your image, and that's fine. Like if you're an
mm,
amateur astronomer, right, like me in my backyard making images of the night sky
yeah.
for sort of fun to make a beautiful image, you can sort of remove those, and it's not that big of a deal. But if you're actually trying to do science with this data, that those pixels that satellite goes through, you essentially have to throw those away. And
Whoa.
um, with one of the more recent instruments, they found that 75% of the images are contaminated with satellite trails, and that the average image has at least three of those trails in it, and some of them are
Whoa.
worse. Some of them have more than that. So, um, so this is a huge problem, and it's a huge problem for Earth observing and for low Earth orbit. But if you go away from the
Mhm.
Earth to
Yeah.
where, and so Hubble, for example, is in an Earth orbit, but James Webb did JWST, which has been giving us all these
Yeah.
amazing images, is an orbit called L2.
Okay.
And I don't know if, let's see, I don't know if that animation works. The animation does not work in the PDF. Of course, it doesn't. Let me. So L2 is a Lagrange point. Yeah, thank you, Entropic. Let me. Maybe you can, if you can. The animation is actually in that Wikipedia page.
Oh, in the
It's
Wikipedia? Yeah, I got
yeah,
it.
it's like the. Let's see.
Oh, I see it. Uh,
It's which one is it though? It's I mean, you could like the first image, I guess, is fine. Just one of 11 that actually shows you. So L2 is a stable point, or
mhm.
actually a slightly unstable point, but it's a stable point in the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. And so there's 2 points,
Mhm.
L1 and L2. L2, and so if you imagine the Earth, as the Earth rotates, all of these points co-rotate at the same time.
Yeah.
And so L2 is always on the opposite side of the Earth to the Sun. And
Yeah.
L1 is always between the Earth and the Sun. And then L4 and L5 are actually legitimately stable points. Um,
Mhm.
and L3 is not
On the
that
opposite.
useful scientifically, because you need a relay satellite to get any signal from behind the Sun back to the Earth, which you could potentially do though,
Got it.
right? You could see that if you had a satellite at L4, and you wanted to
Yeah, you
observe
could.
like the far side of the sun, you could put a satellite
Uh-huh.
at L3 and relay the signal from L4. But there's a bunch of stuff. So Planck, the mission that I worked on, the Cosmic Microwave Background
Mhm.
mission, is at L2, and it's still out there. It does. You do have to use some fuel, some propellant to maintain the orbit. It's not completely stable. And usually, what the spacecraft do is they actually are in it's called a halo orbit. So they actually are orbiting the L2 point itself, but they're sort of orbiting it
Mm,
up and down out of the plane of the Earth going around the sun. Um, so eventually they do. Eventually they will run out of propellant and stuff. But anyway, this
mhm.
point solves a lot of your problems with satellite trails because you're not going to see those. You're not going to see those satellites. Um,
Okay.
it's also handy if you want to be permanent. You can essentially just face your solar shield towards the sun, right, and just look the other
Yeah.
way, so you don't have to deal with solar um, light pollution as well. Which
Mhm.
for something like Planck, we would never have been able to see the cosmic microwave background if we'd looked anywhere near to the sun. So, um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so it's going to be an infrared telescope, infrared and visible, um,
Whoa,
and
very cool.
yeah, it has 8 filters. So these filters are on like a giant. They're huge. I mean, I'm going like this, but they're huge, and
Yeah.
they're on a big
Yeah.
wheel, and they can essentially rotate whichever filter they want into the light path. Um,
Uh-huh.
they can only have one
Huh.
at a time, and so they can measure in different wavelengths. Infrared you can typically see through dust more easily, so you can observe
Mhm.
the interiors of dusty galaxies and stuff like that.
Whoa,
Visible, you get lots of pretty pictures. So, although the infrared images from JWST have been pretty incredible as well.
that's so
Um,
cool.
and
Seems like
so
it's going to hit a lot of stuff at the same time, which is awesome
it
because
is,
yeah.
yeah. And so it was proposed actually in 2010. The concept was
Well,
proposed in 2010 as part of the decadal survey. So every 10 years, I don't know if you have these in. I know there are other sciences that do have these decadal surveys, but it's basically every
mhm,
10 years astronomers get together and they set up a bunch of teams in planetary astronomy and I don't know. Extrasolar astronomy, and then like the interstellar medium, and all these other areas, origins of the galaxy, early universe stuff. They set up all these committees, and a bunch of astronomers get together and decide what the priorities should be for the next 10 years. Like, what's important? What do we want to know?
God, that's we
Uh,
should do that. I don't know if we're that or I
and
don't
it
know if we're
takes
that
like,
organized.
it takes like 2 years, and by the time you put the survey out, it's sort of already old news. But they are pretty important, and they actually have the information kind of gets goes up like this pyramid, and it ends at the top, and eventually some committee decides, okay, these are our top priorities in astronomy. This is the number one thing that we should fund. This is the number two thing that we should, and there's like this ordered
That's
list of things that we think are
God,
important. And
that would help a
so it
lot.
was 16. It's taken 16 years to go from being recommended in the decadal survey to
Alright,
to the current. I think they actually started building it in 2016. Um,
okay.
so it took them about 6 years to figure out what they were going to do. It used to be called JDEM. It was the Joint Dark Energy Mission. That was going to be a NASA DOE thing. Then it was called W
Mhm.
First, and now it's named after Nancy Grace Roman, who was the head of, I think, astrophysics at NASA at one point.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Very
it,
cool. I was gonna ask that.
yeah,
Who
yeah,
Nancy Grace was.
yeah. And so it was it was kind of it's always an issue, right? Once you start with these projects, you're always trying to get funding, right? You got to get it through past the
Yes.
politicians, and so it one thing that NASA has been very good at is having a presence in most states, and it has an economic impact in almost every state. And so
Mhm,
that's why when you see certain people trying to cancel to cut slash NASA's budget by 25, 30, 40%, there's so much
mhm,
pushback because a lot of states, that NASA is a huge part of the economy in a lot of these states. But along with
mhm.
that comes a lot of politics with trying to get these missions going, and who's going to make this part and who's going to make that part, which company is going to get the spacecraft bus and all these other things.
Yeah,
And so one of the things
yeah.
that happened with Nancy Grace Roman, which from a political point of view was really useful, is that they uh, they got these 2 mirrors donated by the National Reconnaissance Office. So they typically are building spy satellites. Is really what they're
Oh,
doing. Let's say Earth observing satellites. Um,
okay.
and so they're like, hey, we have these mirrors that are laying around. Do you want them? And so the astronomers are like, yeah, that's perfect. And then of course they show the politicians. They're like, we have these free mirrors. Look, we've saved ourselves $1 billion already. But the reality is that you then have to design the telescope around the mirrors instead of necessarily
Yeah.
designing the mirror that you actually want. So it's completely unclear that this actually saved any money in the long run. But
Oh
it was
no.
it, but it was enough to get it. It kind of pushed it across the finish line and got it going. And so, um, yeah, these are the two instruments. The wide field instrument, like I said, is 300
Hmm.
megapixels. It's a quarter of a degree field of view, which is huge, really, for a space telescope.
Yeah.
Like I said, 100 times bigger than Webb. And then I don't have a picture of the wheels, but you can imagine that it sits in this frame, and then there's just a huge.
Yeah.
It's the same if anyone does a lot of astrophotography, it's the exact same as you would use a filter wheel in your. Well, okay, not exactly the same because yours probably cost like
Yeah.
$500, but you know. And it'll be able to do imaging and also spectroscopy. So we'll be able to look at the
Hmm.
spectra of these exoplanets. We'll be able to potentially tell what's in the atmospheres of these planets. We should learn a ton about. We're up to 6,000 and some exoplanets that we know of right now.
Just crazy.
Yeah, and this telescope should be able to find them through several methods as well. So it should find a bunch of new ones, and then we should be able to image a lot of the ones that we already know about. Uh, and then we
Wow.
kind of talked about the coronagraph instrument, which,
Hmm.
like I said, astronomers. So it's called CGI. We're really imaginative with our instrument names.
Hey
Uh,
man, that's archaeology and history is we don't go crazy. We don't go crazy that much.
um, but yeah, so I kind of already talked about the coronagraph. You sort of know what that does, and
Hmm.
and the kind of the way that I described it is sort of an old, like that's how old coronagraphs worked.
Hmm.
There are new techniques and technologies that are being implemented in this one that should make it really much more effective than some of the older ones. So we'll see what happens.
That's so cool.
Uh, and
Gosh.
and yeah, they managed to get it. So it's taken about 10 years from when they started the project to actually getting it ready for launch, which is not about
I was gonna say, is that a
average.
good
No,
timeline?
yeah, that's
Short?
pretty typical. That's pretty typical.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
some are worse. I think JWST was 16 years or something,
Ooh.
and triple over budget. I think Nancy Grace Roman has come in roughly on budget, which is sort of unheard of as well.
Triple. Oh my goodness.
Uh,
Triple over budget sounds just like just makes me cringe. That's crazy.
People are asking about Nancy Grace Roman. Yeah, so she passed away in 2018, and
Mm.
she was an astronomer and a mathematician and a physicist. Um, who was I think she was the first female executive at NASA. I believe
Okay.
um, that's how
Very
she's
cool.
described. But she did a lot of astronomy, a lot of cool astronomy. Um, she worked at Yerkes, which is a kind of a famous observatory, the University of Chicago, and she did a lot of
Mm.
really interesting. She was at NRL for a while, and yeah, so that's the Nancy Grace Roman that we're talking about.
Very good.
uh, yeah, kind of a big figure in
Yeah, very
astronomy. Yeah,
aptly
and it's great
named
that she
for
got, yeah,
sure.
right. It's better than JDEM, which is just like
JDev.
uh, yeah. So this thing, I mean, hopefully, there is an outside chance I might get to go to the launch. We'll see. There's an
Ooh.
application process where NASA is inviting,
Mhm.
I think 50
Wow.
astronomers, 50, not 50 astronomers, Jesus, I've got astronomers on the brain, 50 creators to go,
Creators, yeah.
yeah, and watch the
So
launch live,
cool.
which I know that Mahoodles and Astrocanuck did that for one of the
Oh,
launches. Which one was it?
yeah, I saw that, and I can't remember which one it was.
Europa Clipper, maybe.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah. So they do it pretty much every time. And I'm hoping I haven't been to one, so we'll see. We'll see if
That would
we
be
can
very,
sneak in.
very
Yeah, it'd be
cool.
pretty cool. like I said, it's launching at the end of August, so it's coming up. It's really when you consider when you think about like comparing this to sort of the ancient Egyptians who had
Mhm.
almost no interest in astronomy other than for a few practical purposes, and now we're building
Yeah.
like we're trying to figure out like how does the universe work kind of thing, and that's
Yeah.
happened in I don't know 3,000 years, three, four, three, four,
Yeah.
two, three, four, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, 'cause Egypt is so long, so, like,
Yeah, right,
when
right,
you
right.
really get down to it, like, they only really started getting into it Ptolemaic period is, like, the 300s CE, so that's less than it's
2,500.
just over,
Oh,
yeah,
2,000. Yeah,
2,500, but,
yeah.
like, they were around for a while, so if you count them still following the stars, you can stretch it back to 5 or 6. Um, but yeah, it's absolutely fascinating what what we can do now. And honestly, it's very funny how it just kind of it doesn't make sense in my brain. Like it's one of those things that it's like, how do we know all these? Like it's so high science and math that it's just like it nothing clicks in my brain that I'm like, how
Uh,
do they even know this? How can they figure this out? And I it's so fascinating to me, but it's like it's so above my like brain space. Um, but it's just
it's
absolutely
interesting
fascinating.
because it's like a lot of the physics is actually, yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but it's not like
Yeah,
it's designing the instrument to measure the thing that you want to measure, and then you run into all these problems that you didn't realize, all these noise problems, and then you get
yeah.
interference between the different circuits and the different instruments, and it depends what you're trying to measure.
Mhm.
If you're just taking a optical image, that's not necessarily as prone to that, but you have to worry about cosmic rays hitting your detectors and
Yeah.
knocking out pixels and all this other just crazy stuff. And we understand so much of it, and yet at the same time, there's parts of it that we totally don't. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating when you look at the schematic here of this sort of spacecraft. Um,
Yeah.
and the
This is
instrument, and you
crazy.
look at all the companies and all the people that were involved in putting this together with the
Mhm.
bus. The bus is basically like the body of the spacecraft that everything else is attached to,
Mhm.
and that'll have the propulsion and the fuel tanks, and um, obviously it's not carrying that much. It's only carrying enough fuel to perform its science operations. It's not necessarily carrying fuel to the rocket is going to get it to where it needs to go, and how many stages of that there need to
Yeah.
be. And this is just for station keeping and pointing potentially as well. They do typically use reaction wheels to make the thing. So they use momentum, the angular momentum, basically just to make the
Mhm.
spacecraft slowly turn. But if they have to make
Mm.
big maneuvers, or if they need to actually move it up, or move it in space as opposed to just rotating it, then obviously they have to use some propellant for that. But
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
And then you've got communications, you've got the camera, and then this is like this whole instrument carrier thing sounds straightforward, but it's got to carry this mirror. And of course, once it's in space, the design requirements are
Mhm.
completely different for than they are
Yeah.
when you got to get it into space. It has to
You gotta
survive
get
that
it. That's what I
launch.
was thinking too. It's like it's like you can design it all you want, but it has to survive getting into space, which
Yeah,
I think is just like
exactly.
it's just like it can I feel like it's one of those things where it's like I'm so sure how to do something and then this outside thing comes in and saying, "Wait, no, I can't do that because if I do the way that I want to do it, I now can't do it anymore." And I feel like that just must be for like early people like astronomers and people who want to work for NASA. I feel like that might be something that just like at the very beginning of their career. In my opinion, it would be like, oh no, I can't do that because of this. It's like it's just always like this just thing that is just you have to get it to space. You have to have it be able to sustain high speeds and high heat and all of that. And that just would it would completely cut off my creativity and
Yeah.
imagination, I think.
Well, and the nice thing about places like NASA is that you typically have a very a sort of a very a workforce that contains experts
Yeah.
all the way down to like young engineers and scientists who are just starting, and so there's definitely there's definitely a recognition that you need to train the next generation and get the
Mhm.
younger generation involved, and kind of introducing them to that somewhat slowly, although occasionally they do get thrown in at the
Yeah.
deep end as well. But uh Um,
Chill Drew, I loved your thing about it. It might not help dispel moon landing was fake conspiracies if you say the telescope uses CGI. And I have a very ironically similar thing. I am very anti AI, and I did a video. Somebody asked me like what my script writing is for my TikTok videos, and I put up a screenshot of my Google Drive with all of the documents where I write all the scripts, and just to show them how many things I have in backlog and stuff. And I forgot that one of my series that I do is called Artifact Insight, and I just have the document listed as AI
AI. Oh
general.
no. Oh,
And I got like 3 comments saying, "Is that AI?" And I'm like, "No, no, it's not AI. I promise." Like I think that's the unfortunate thing is we do get those shorthands. Yeah, CGI, AI, meaning multiple different things, or even like AL, but it looks like AI. Like it's gonna definitely not gonna help when somebody's not gonna really go in to see that it's called a chronograph instrument and not CGI. But yeah,
huh.
that reminded me of that. That's so funny.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, it is funny. So yeah, it's gonna be incredible. I think the nominal mission lifetime is 10 years. I think that's right.
Okay.
I couldn't swear to that. So yeah, it's gonna be up there for a while. And I mean, in theory,
That
obviously things can
yeah.
go wrong, things can happen.
Yes,
With fingers crossed for the launch and all that. But that is, you know,
absolutely.
the bigger the mission and the longer the development has been, obviously the more pressure there is and the more nerves there are
Yeah,
around the launches.
for
But
sure.
we're pretty good at it now. I mean, we have famously blown up a couple of rockets recently, but
Yeah, I saw one of those, recently. I was like, "Ooh, oh no, not good." Um, but wow, this was so amazing, and it's so interesting that this is just again, we're just constantly going out to find out more about the world outside of us, and that we are so small in comparison. It's always one of those things that just boggles my mind about
yeah, it is.
how
Yeah.
big we are, and how small we are in comparison to how big the universe is, and that I feel like as we develop better technology, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I mean, we're doing some amazing stuff. We were talking about gravitational waves the other day, and you're basically trying to measure an effect which moves your sensor by I think it was the width of a proton across the diameter of the Earth.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
And they're doing it, and they've actually been successfully done it. And then, I mean, at some point, you're like, because you have to worry about things like traffic driving past the lab. Like, there's all these things that they have to
Ah,
remove from the data. That the ocean, like the tides and things, move the detect. It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I
it's
mean, and there's a plan for a space-based version of that. So they're going to do this laser
wow.
interferometry between satellites to that kind of precision as well. So it's just bonkers, like
Wow.
the things that we come up with, and the down or not the downside necessarily, but the thing that has created though is that most big astronomy projects now are done in huge collaborations of
Mm,
not just NASA, but like when I worked on Planck, I can't remember how many
mhm.
scientists there were on Planck, 700 or 800 scientists, and that's not including all the technicians and the support staff and the office
That's
people,
crazy.
and all that stuff, just to put an instrument up there. And
Mhm.
I mean, an incredible instrument and very technologically advanced at the time, and all those things. But it's just, the days of the solo astronomer like at the telescope peering at the night sky.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, that's not how most stuff gets done now.
Yeah, and archaeology has, in a lot of senses, become smaller over time, which I think is kind of fascinating, or it's more, I guess, split off a little bit, like larger excavations, especially in Egypt in the
Mm,
early 1900s, were you would have like the head of the dig, you'd probably have 3 or 4 maybe Europeans who are supervisors, and then you'd have hundreds of local Egyptians who are actually actively doing the excavation and are actively bringing up water from the Nile to come up to the excavation. And now, in a lot of places in the world, archaeology is unfortunately kind of closing off and making these smaller little groups. And the unfortunate thing is, it's mostly because of people looting and having to kind of not keep it a secret for long, but keep it a secret while we are actively excavating so that we can't just brag on Facebook day one saying, look at what we found. And then you come back to the site the next day and somebody has come into it and fully looted it. And
Yeah,
actually, news that just broke, like literally, I think
yeah,
yesterday, 5 people were killed in a illegal excavation in Egypt. They were looting a site, and I think the tunnel or something that they were in collapsed and killed them. And I'm like, people think that it doesn't happen anymore, and it still absolutely actively does. And this is why archaeology is about sharing that with the public, but it's sharing it with the public when we can and when
right,
we
right,
know
right.
that we can protect it, because protection is the number one thing that we want to do. Um, and so it's interesting, like archaeology can be a very, very interdisciplinary job, depending on what you are specifically doing. And there are absolutely excavations that have multiple universities all together, a lot of them in Egypt, no matter what. Egypt doesn't really allow other outside organizations to excavate by themselves anymore. It's usually always the Supreme Council of Antiquities and the University of blah blah blah.
That makes
You
sense.
never
Yeah,
really see it by themselves anymore, for valid reasons of white people stealing stuff from them.
yeah,
And it's always been a really collaborative job, and you have the people that are focused more in art, and you have the people who are focused more in dendrochronology and studying tree rings and wooden objects, and bioarchaeologists studying teeth and showing what people's diets were in the past. And so it's a really cool job and position where you can pick your kind of focus. And I feel like with astronomy there's a lot of options there. Is like, I'm sure those 7 to 800 people have vastly different jobs,
oh, 100%. Yeah,
depending on what
absolutely,
project you're doing.
absolutely.
Like, you probably have engineers and stuff that typically might not do anything that's astronomy based, but they're just the physical, the people who are building something, or they are just designing the shapes of it. And like, I feel like you get that option that you can. I always tell people, it's like, you don't have to be a museum studies major to work in a museum. Museums need HR people. They need
Sure.
fabricators. They need people to build exhibits, and they need to exhibit panels and stuff like that. They
Hmm.
need those people that are not necessarily, you get your museum degree to be able to work in a museum
Right,
setting.
right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same in astronomy for sure. I mean, we have microwave engineers that are designing the instruments, and like
Hmm.
one of the microwave engineers I worked with had worked at Nokia in his
Oh
previous.
yeah.
So his that was his skill set, was in the microwave technology and stuff, and went from that to people who were interested in the science. Like we were removing foregrounds from the like noise and contamination from the data, and there were people who were interested in the supercomputing side of things and actually how to run the code, and it's just everything. So um, hey, Zero Narrative, welcome in. Let me just see. There's a question here. How much fuel? 5 years worth. I think 1,000 liters or so. Bird Banes. 1,000 liters of fuel should be enough for 10 years. Actually, double the 5-year nominal mission lifetime. I believe you'd have to double check, but I think that's right. IT
Hmm.
at wooden boat place takes all kinds. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Shock Valley. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, there's all kinds of, there were technicians, and we had incredible technicians. Like we would be building instruments. They didn't let me do any soldering, and I wouldn't have wanted to do it because the work these guys did was beautiful. I'm like, yeah, I can't do it. I can't do as good of a job as that. So you guys knock yourselves out, and they would do beautiful work, and it would just come back looking like it had been made in a factory somewhere. It was
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
exactly. I People ask me all about C14 dating, and I'm like, "Oh, no, no, that's science." Like,
Yeah.
I'm on the very, very art history side of it, and then the archaeology side of it, which, like, there are definitely archaeologists, bioarchaeologists, they can do stuff in labs and testing. And people we at one of my excavations, any piece of charcoal that we found, we wrapped up in tinfoil and we actually mailed to Australia. And there was somebody who was a dendrochronologist who was an expert in burnt wood and could tell you what type of wood it was. And
Hmm.
like, there are so many different things that it's like, it is impossible to kind of become an expert in everything that you have to do with archaeology and with history. And it's kind of funny, I never describe myself as a historian, which sounds silly to say, but like, I because of my more practical, like in the field background in archaeology, I've
Mm.
always sort of even though I've never excavated in Egypt, I more describe myself about like I'm very into the material culture, I'm very into the art, but like I'm not that person who really just sits down and reads like old documents. And to be honest, Egypt doesn't have that in comparison. Like I'm not a medievalist who can go and find the illuminated manuscripts and
Yeah,
read all of the histories that they're writing actively at that time. Egypt has very limited stuff. So most Egyptologists, especially now, focus more in archaeology or in art history or in linguistics. A good chunk are have to be the people who can translate stuff. And so historian is sometimes that term I just don't vibe with, even though obviously all I'm doing is talking about history. Um, but yeah, I love how one field can seem very one-sided, but turns out to be so much more it's interdisciplinary every day. And
yeah,
I think that is something that needs to be talked about, I think, to younger people and to people thinking about going into different fields, because I think sometimes you get that one-sided view of like, oh, I have to be good at math to be an astronomer. Like, yeah, maybe, but there's other options. There's other ways to kind of get into those fields without having one or two of these just traits that are just automatically associated with these fields.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there are definitely more mathematical sides of astronomy and less mathematical. I mean, yeah, probably if you're really really bad at math, it might not be the right choice for you. But
Yeah,
you don't need
exactly.
to be able to like understand general relativity, right? We have public outreach people. You can have a background in
Yeah,
astronomy and just a love for astronomy and work in a planetarium, for example, right? Educating the public
absolutely.
and doing engagement and stuff like that. So yeah,
Mhm.
there's any number of ways, or you can just work. You know, like people always ask me, "Oh, how do I get a job at NASA?" It's like, well, that's what
Mm,
you want to do, right? You have to decide what you want to do,
yeah.
and then just look at the job listings and like
Mhm.
you can be a machinist and get a job at NASA. It's the
Yeah.
machinists we have are great, and there's just like you said, there's everything. I mean, it's it there's a place for everybody, and you just have to figure out what you're interested in. And I don't think that is sort of I think sometimes when young people are like getting careers advice, like, well, what do you want? Oh, you want to be an engineer, right? Then you should do this. It's like, well, wait a second. What kind of
Yeah.
engineer? Like, like engineer is like such a broad, and maybe it's different now. Like I'm talking about, 30 years ago, and
Yeah.
so, but that was the kind of that was the advice we got. It was like, oh yeah, well, if you want to be an engineer, you need to study physics and math, and
No, it's hard sometimes because I archaeology is a hard one for recommendations. I've gotten people ask me like, "Oh, what do I need to study to get into archaeology?" And I'm like in elementary school and high school, like there's not much like specifics that you kind of have to do. Like, yeah, like science will definitely help you in some parts of archaeology. Math will definitely help you in some parts of archaeology, but like most of the time you just need history and sort of in the very basis you need in college to go on a field school. And it's like if you need that practical digging and you're not going to get that in high school. And so it's really about finding a college that has what you need. And in a lot of cases in the United States, you only need a college degree and a field school to become like a field tech at cultural resource management firms. Like sometimes they'll ask for a master's, but a lot of times, like as long as they know you've been in the field and you have that experience, um, like they can hire you. And it's not great work. It's not very well paid work, but it is work that is out there and you can rise in the ranks and you can find that. But I look back at my career, which I've always described as a wibbly wobbly path, and nobody really gave me more options. Like, especially when it came to me going to get my master's. When I came back from my study abroad, my junior year, my professor was like, "So what do you want to do?" And I was like, "I mean, I really like archaeology now." And he was like, "So you're going to go get your master's?" I was like, "I guess. Yeah. Okay." And it
yeah.
seemed like genuinely the only path would be to go get my master's and then go get my PhD. And I ended up having to take a gap year because I hadn't planned anything the summer of my study abroad because I was in Rome, I was digging. So I took a gap year and I literally applied to every single university in the United States that has an Egyptology PhD or master's. Got rejected from every single one of them because I did not understand even what it was to apply for a PhD, which is typically you have to come with a project already in your brain, which I did
Uh,
not
uh-huh.
have. And then just went with the only masters that I got into, and realized halfway through that this was all a mistake. And it just, uh, it's one of those things that I tell people that I like take the time to really figure out what you want to do, because get as many experiences as you can, because I didn't get, essentially I did not get the experience to figure out what I really really wanted to do, which was more archaeology, communication, public archaeology, and like on that museum education side. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that until I always describe two different instances, which is interning at the current place that I work, which is an archaeology museum, and being a museum educator for the summer. And then also just hearing one former alumni of our grad school come back and say, even after she had done her PhD, she realized that she wanted a 9 to 5. She did not want to have to grade after work. She did not want to have to come up with lesson plans. And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." I was like, cuz that is just the natural path, is you just get your PhD and you teach. Like that is the basis. And so those two instances helped shape what I wanted to do. And so I always try to tell people, get as many experiences as you can. And it's also not shameful to be an amateur Egyptologist, or an amateur historian. There are many, many people who do not actively work in the field that are either science communicators or are doing actual research and publishing things, but they are not actively working in the field. There's no shame of that. There's no shame of it being your hobby. If you're
Yeah.
interested, if you're passionate in it, you can do that. You absolutely can. It can be your hobby. Especially because like I don't
In
like
my
writing
experience,
papers.
there's
I have
no such
no
thing as luck.
strive to sort of write and publish papers. And so I knew that even as a professor, I would never like
People are
it, like
counting
some
on us.
universities
The
would require me to
galaxy
do
is
research
counting
and
on
publish
us.
papers. And
So
that was
we'll
always like,
figure it out.
no, that's not
We'll
really,
use the force.
not really what I
That's not how the
want
force
kind of in my
works.
life. So it's a hard thing to figure out kind of early on in your life, but take the time you can.
Yeah, this is just my experience as well, but I think if you're in grad school and you get about halfway through and you don't think you've made a huge mistake, then you're probably not doing it right. The only question is whether which way you go, which direction you take out
Yes.
of the. You go through or do you go
It
back?
has been when I've talked to a lot of people, especially doing these interviews and stuff, I have realized it is a little bit more universal than I realized.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I've had a lot of people that I've met that had a similar toxic academia experience that I did, and went to communication. And
Mm,
so uh, I'm very happy that we sort of have all kind of found a place to settle on as a way that we can still teach people, but just in a more informal and more chill, a more accessible, a lot of ways,
yeah,
way to the world.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know. You make these decisions, and then I have to say I didn't experience a toxic environment particularly. I think astronomy is, for the most part, there are a few professors with a reputation, but some of the stories I've
Mhm.
heard from like Berlin about the biology labs and places where he's worked, I'm like, wow, like I never experienced anything like that.
Honestly, I feel like unfortunately mine was a very small group, because
Uh,
have I will say I don't know a lot of people in the Egyptology community, but a lot of archaeology people I have heard are like, "Oh, yeah, I called my professor by his first name, and, like, we were chill, like, we hung out all the time," and I was like, "Oh, I once accidentally called him just by his last name and without doctor, and he got really mad at me." I was like, "Huh, okay." Like,
oh
was
wow,
purposely
okay, yeah,
told was purposely told that, on our first day of Egyptian language class, that my professors, killed me teaching me this, and I'm gonna do the same to you guys, like, so I'm like, I feel like ours was sort of an exception, but I have heard other things about just they wanted it to be so much like, I think some Egyptology people think of it as so much more highbrow than other archaeology or other history fields.
I
And
see.
I think that is I haven't heard a lot of other really toxic ones, but yeah, mine was pretty bad and, was enough to literally put me off of ever getting a PhD again because I'm just terrified of ever seeing them again or,
Mm.
uh, going and doing more papers
That's
and things like
unfortunate.
that.
Sorry to
So,
hear that.
but yeah, it is but it also it woke me up. Like, it genuinely I knew that being a professor was not gonna be a thing that I really wanted to do, because again, I just, like I've decided it's like, if I ever taught any class, I would never do essays, I would never do papers because I hate grading papers. I have really bad, like, grammar and, like, all the like all of that I would never do. Everything would be multiple choice. It would be the chillest class ever. Like, we would not any formality is going out the door, because it just would and I do think something I did notice is that a lot of people who go into professorships, um, there's no requirement to ever take a teaching course. And it's one
Right.
of those things that it's always like, there are some people that are brilliant and they are so smart and they are writing amazing papers and amazing books, but they don't know how to communicate that to regular people or to students. And I think that honestly should be a requirement in a lot of other fields that if you're gonna become a PhD professor, you have to get because just like an elementary school or, high school teacher, you have to get a master's in teaching. Like, you have to have that, and it just kinda boggles my mind that a lot of professors, like, don't have that, and they're sort of forced to teach just so they can get funded for research, in a lot of cases, or funded for an excavation, and it's just an unfortunate, like, why are we making these people do it if they are torturing students and hindering their learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you consider how much it costs to go and be abused by those professors.
I know. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes.
Uh,
It's genuinely awful. Um,
Addicted to
but yeah.
Calving said, "Do you think modern astronomy can take any lessons from ancient astronomy that we can apply today?" I mean, I think we understand. It depends what you mean. Again, addicted to Calving, but if you're talking about like purely like scientific astronomy, not really, because
Mhm.
we understand astronomy and the physical universe now so much better than they did because we have different tools, right? We have telescopes, we have all these tools that they didn't have at their disposal, and we have a mathematical framework and all this other stuff. So I don't really think there's any other than to be curious about the night sky. I would say
Mhm.
that's something that we could take from them maybe, but in terms of like actual astronomy stuff, I don't know. I mean, it's advanced so much. I mean, look at this thing on the screen. Like, can you imagine if you
Yeah.
showed this to the ancient Egyptians? They would be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, they would have no idea.
Yeah.
Did you, in your PhD or any classes, did you ever take, like, a history of astronomy course and learn, like, a lot about this? Is that a requirement or an elective that
It's not a
you've seen
requirement, but
in
I did. Yeah, I just took an interest in it,
okay.
and I took like a scientific writing and class, which
Hmm,
was based astronomy, which was based around astronomy, and it's just something I've always been interested in, the history of it, and I think the personalities are, to me, that's the kind. Yeah, the history of it from a um like a technical perspective and the things that people discovered is
mm,
one thing, but the personalities and like the
yeah,
environment they were working in and how they kind of extracted this knowledge with very
mhm,
limited tools in some cases, right? And they just looked at the world around them and they were like, "Oh, I wonder if this works that way." And then they set about trying to disprove one way or the other.
yeah,
This is like the very early origins of the scientific method, and that to me, I think that's fascinating. But like some of the beefs that there's
absolutely.
been in history and stuff, like that's the best. That's the best stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those things I love asking people in other fields because, um, in history, we have, it's not always a requirement, but I took a class on it, which is, called historiography, which is the study of history. And it's looking at how people have studied history in the past. And I've always been very curious about other fields. And one of the museums I work at is an apothecary, so a old pharmacy. And
Mm.
I've asked people whenever people come in about medical fields, because we do most of the time we get people who are nurses or pharmacists come in to see our space. And I'm always like, did you guys ever have a class about the history of pharmacy or the history of medicine? Because I think it does help educate you and see how people have changed over time. And in some cases, especially with the history of medicine and pharmacy, like there are practices back then that actually do lead to things that are still used today. And I have found most people never did it unless they like had an elective and they were allowed to sort of choose it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've always just found it as something that I feel like should be a requirement in a lot of people's fields, because understanding the past of your field, especially when even looking not as far back and just looking at the history of Egyptology, and you have to have that understanding of like how people in your field have talked about this before, and also like you said, how their environment around them has influenced them to do, let's say, stupid shit, and sometimes others not as, and sometimes make discoveries, but like how all of these Europeans didn't see the Egyptians as these elite people and saw them as inferior. And so they put on this theory that, oh no, the people who built the pyramids, they weren't Africans, they were Europeans, and they came
Oh,
over and
sure.
took
Yeah,
them over.
right.
And it's all based on their sort of knowledge of the world and their perceptions and perspectives. And so I've always felt it very like important that I feel like people should learn the history of their field, and especially unfortunately with Egyptology, where we're honestly having to answer for a lot of
Mm.
the atrocities that have happened. And there are plenty of fields, medical field included, that you have to answer to some of the stuff that was maybe not very ethical at the time. And so I always find it very fascinating about like what classes are being offered and why they don't offer history classes. History should just be imbued into everything, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, it is difficult with a lot of times you're trying to cram so much
Yeah.
so many classes into such a small amount of time that something has to get left out. But yeah, I mean, the history of astronomy is littered with like Brahe. Tycho Brahe was this crazy, like he was a party animal. Apparently, this was like 1550-ish to 1600 or something. He
Yeah.
died fairly young. He drank himself to death. I don't remember. Anyway, he was an amazing observational astronomer. He gathered mountains and mountains of data, but he didn't share it with anybody. He didn't trust other astronomers. He thought they were going to steal his data. He had like lost his nose in a duel, and I don't know. He had it was crazy times. And then his student was Kepler, and Kepler became his
Okay.
student
Yeah.
because he wanted to get access to the data, and he knew that he was the only way that he had a chance of getting access to the data um, was by becoming a
Just
student.
gonna
But
sneak on
Brahe
in.
kind of figured this out, and he's like, "No, no, no, I'm not giving you any of my data." And then before that all played out, Brahe actually died, and so Kepler got
He
the data.
dies.
Kepler got the data anyway.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy times, that whole story. But there's all kinds of episodes. He was one of the more colorful ones, but there's all
No, I
kinds of
love
stories.
those. I love that stuff. There's always someone. It's just a little odd. It's just like stealing stuff. There's a I always want to pronounce it as Schiaparelli, but it's I think Schiariapelli, this Italian Egyptologist that which I don't even want to say Egyptologist, technically explorer, who because he's coming from an era before actual archaeology.
Mm.
And apparently he just had a beef with like every big archaeologist slash explorer who are stealing stuff and taking stuff to put in museums in Europe. And apparently he just would like send out like hordes of men to like kind of like attack different archaeological sites, and
Oh my god.
apparently it was a little bit more violent than like most archaeology would be described. And that like most people like these big names of like Belzoni like were terrified and kind of hated this guy. And I didn't discover that until much recently, and I was like, oh, so
Oh
that's why
my
the
god.
Turin Museum has a lot of Egyptian objects, because this guy just started going crazy. And that's not even to top all of the explosives that was used in early archaeology.
Right. Oh my god. It's so crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
Addicted had another question for you. What is the
Oh.
most frustrating side of astronomy, the learning side or the social side? Like between colleagues or people that maybe don't believe in astronomy. So like going on the the outside world versus the internal
So,
field.
that's a good question. I guess I would say the most frustrating part of astronomy is the funding situation. There's never enough money
Mm,
to fund, you know, more
same.
than one or two big, like you can build an anti-grace Roman, or you can do 10 smaller projects, and it just
Yeah.
depends, how things get decided. So that can be kind of frustrating, and there's not, like NASA's whole budget is like $24 billion a year. That's it for the whole everything that NASA does, which is not a huge amount of. It sounds like a big number, but it's not a huge amount of money.
But it's not, yeah.
Yeah, I mean Elon Musk probably has that laying around on his couch or something. But
Yeah.
in terms of, yeah, I mean, people that don't believe, I don't really. I mean, obviously, as a science communicator, we occasionally get people who are like, the moon landings were faked, or the Earth is flat, or all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and it doesn't really bother. That just seems so insane to me that it doesn't annoy me. I'm like, I feel bad for the person, and we try and make them feel welcome, and we try and change their mind, and we've
Mhm.
actually had a couple of successes with that, where we're just like, yeah, that
Mm.
this isn't possible because of this, and this, and the people have been like, oh, and occasionally, it's just like, oh, well, some people you just can't reach, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, there are definitely some personalities in astronomy, I would say, some interesting characters. Maybe not quite as crazy as Bry, but
Yeah.
but that's true of any field. There's always, whatever kind of
Yeah.
job you have, you're always working with a mix of people, and some of them you get on really well with, and others you're just like, wow,
Mhm.
okay.
No,
So,
I totally agree. The crazier the conspiracy theory, the more confidence I have to be sassy with them in comments on the internet.
uh,
Um, like, the the ones that are, like, much closer to home that are harder to, like, talk about, like, that could be possible, or they are just, like, very complicated topics like race in the ancient Egyptians and, like, homosexuality and, like, things like that, like,
mm.
are more difficult for me to talk about actively, but it's like if somebody just comes in and says what's under the pyramid, or are we gonna find is Cleopatra there's a crazy Reddit theory that we looked into that Alexander the Great is Tutankhamun, and that one I'm like it's so convoluted and stupid, and it's just connecting coincidences about them both being rich. Like that's like the very basis of it is
uh,
that they're both being rich and they both used and that Alexander the Great used a name that Tutankhamun had. And I'm like,
well, that's it. That's
okay.
conclusive
And
proof right
then
there.
yeah, conclusive proof. Absolutely. And so yeah, so the crazier something is, the less like I try. We'll
Yeah,
just be
yeah,
honest.
yeah.
But yeah, I could understand that completely, that it's just like when it gets you can't change people's minds, and there's so many minds. I'm glad that you don't seem to get that much of the crazy people because I
We
get them
really
so
don't.
often.
What do you say? Well,
Oh my god.
chat's better than me, but I would say it's like less than one a month. Less than one
Oh
a
my
month.
god.
Yeah. I mean,
We're very grateful. We don't
I
get
mean,
as
in chat on
yeah,
Twitch, not like, yeah. I mean, the YouTube
yeah,
videos. The comment section of the YouTube videos is a whole other thing. Like,
yeah. Ours we don't get as much on Twitch chat. We get a lot on TikTok chat,
mm,
at the very beginning when I'm live there, and
I see.
it was crazy when I first started posting on YouTube, and now it's actually calmed down, and now it's Facebook is the crazy place, which I should have known. Obviously, it's the crazy place, but yeah, YouTube has calmed down luckily in the
Yeah.
past couple of months.
It depends on the
But
video
yeah,
as well. Like the ones I was doing
yes.
about the asteroid Atlas, 3I Atlas.
Oh,
I mean, that was one of my most popular my like popular, most watched, but also it had like, I
yeah.
don't know, 150,000 views or something. But the comment section was the only good thing is they were arguing with themselves, so I didn't really have to do anything.
Yes.
You
Yeah, you don't do
know?
anything. Yeah, you just let it happen. Yeah, the video that got me like Facebook monetization, which I never even thought was like possible because I was barely getting any views,
Yeah.
is all about mustaches on ancient Egyptian statues, which
Uh,
like should have been the most normal video. Like, genuinely thought it was like, on TikTok, it was fine. Like, everyone was fine on TikTok, and what I literally didn't know is that the first image that I pulled up behind me, which is a very famous image of this beautiful statue from the Old Kingdom, and it's probably the most famous statue that has this mustache, there's a very large crackpot theory that it's fake, that it's a fake statue, and I was like, "Where did this come from?" Like, I just had no
Wait,
idea,
why does it
and
have to be
it
fake? Oh, actually, you know what? Never
Here's
mind.
like
No, no. I'm sorry.
the very basis of it is it's too nice. That's the very basis of it, and that it's unique. Like those are the two main points is that it's unique and it's too nice. And I'm like, do you guys understand that this is the statue of the son of Khufu, the son of the great pyramid builder, who is literally a vizier? And I guess the understanding that there's no agency of like,
Mm,
I am a rich person, I can go talk to the artist and get him to depict me however I want. And there's a big disconnect with I think the general public when you look at ancient Egyptian art, which is so consistent over time, and you see one difference. And it's again the bust of Nefertiti also gets a lot of hate that it's fake. And there's a lot of these objects that when you look at it, why they're claiming they're fake is because they're unique. They're
mm,
different.
mm.
And I'm just like, there's just normal stuff. And there's also a small paint drip on the back of his neck, which is also why people think that it was made in the 1800s, in the
Uh,
late 1800s. And I'm like, artists
obviously,
make mistakes.
obviously, no Egyptian would
Like,
ever make a paint drip.
no, they would never. They would never. Um,
It's
but
crazy.
yeah, Otto, what did you ask? Did you ever get it called a paid government disinformation agent? Yes. I've been not like I'm a government, but they have said that like, oh, like they're paying you to say that. And I'm like, who's paying me?
Yeah,
Where are they?
yeah. Where's
Like
my check
the
if I'm being
Egyptian
paid?
government?
Exactly.
Am I
Yeah,
getting paid? My wallet is empty. Like, yeah.
100%.
Um I've gotten that before and it's like yes, like obviously the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities is run by Egypt, but like am I in Egypt? No, I'm not. I don't get like paid by them. No.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm sure you get that with NASA unfortunately because it is
Occasionally, yeah, people
a
break
lot
out
of
the,
risk.
oh, you believe all this stuff, or, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, yeah. Uh, I mean,
It's
I
so hard. It's so hard.
it is what it is. You put yourself out there, you know it's gonna happen, so
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. Um, is there any other questions that about Egypt or about the Nancy Grace Roman satellite or anything that we chatted about already? Because I know you're in a completely different time zone than I am, but you might have to go eat.
I'm gonna grab some food, and then actually we're rolling straight in, so we just hit 4K followers the other
Oh,
day, so thank you.
congratulations!
Yeah, we're having our 4K follower
Yay!
party after this. I don't know what we're gonna. I have no idea what we're gonna do, but we usually do like marbles on stream and goof around, watch some videos, and
Oh yeah, amazing.
play some games. But yeah, that's it. That's
But
my
yeah,
that's my whole plan for the rest of the day, if you can call that a
hey
plan.
man, my plan is to make myself an ice cream cone and go to
Ooh,
bed
that's
because I don't
actually
have
really
work
good.
tomorrow. Um, but yeah, thank you so much. Obviously, we raid into your channel a lot, but if anybody else has any questions on my channel, feel free. You can put them in the Discord, and I can send them Nerdino's way. Um, oh, I know who you're talking about, Sir Yogi.
Mm.
He's not actually in charge anymore, so we don't actually have to worry about him. But I've actually met him. He's like one of the one famous Egyptologists that I have met in person, and it is not a great impression, but that's okay. Um, yeah, he was actually only in charge for like a couple months before the 2011 revolution, and then he got ousted, and then got put back in, and then got ousted again. So he has his own archaeology firm, and that's fine. But otherwise, we don't need to worry about him that much. Um, but yeah, the drama, the drama of fun people who I did not realize that the public had such a bad perception. I thought it was more of an internal Egyptology thing, and then I discovered, oh wait, actually the public doesn't like him either. That was a new one.
That's funny. Well, listen,
um,
Melissa, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and thanks to
yeah,
your chat for making me feel welcome. And it's been a super interesting discussion
absolutely.
of all things
Oh
astronomy
my
and
gosh.
Egypt
Hi
and
Ludo.
other rabbit
I just
holes that
gotta
we've.
read. Sorry.
Oh, nice, 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 nice.
Hi Ludo. I will do welcoming in just a second because we're just saying goodbye to Nerdino. But thank you guys for coming on in.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll stay on for a little bit longer, Otto. We'll chat for a little bit. But yeah, thank you so much, Nadine, for coming on. And when we ever get any new astronomy news, we would love to have you back.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, maybe when Roman is up and getting some data, we'll talk about what we've discovered. That would be super cool.
Yeah. The fun thing that's also happening in August, which I will unfortunately not be able to see, is they are getting a full eclipse over
Hmm.
Luxor,
Yep.
and I am very sad that I will not be there, but I will probably be sharing a lot of pictures of that in August, because it's supposed to go like literally right over all of the amazing
They
temples
must have
in
planned it that
Luxor,
way.
and it's
They must have planned it that way.
yeah, they must have. Yeah, someone was definitely paying them to plan it that way. Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities just
Big pyramid.
pay it.
Yeah.
Big pyramid. Exactly. Well, thank you so
All right.
much,
Thank you
and
too.
we will
Yeah.
see you around.
Have a great evening. Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Hold on one sec. Let's get organized here. Let's go back to this scene. And oh, thanks, sweetie. I'll be yeah. I'm gonna take a short break. Um, all right. Dr. Ned just came with some. Dr. Ned just came with some um pasta, which looks really delicious. Came in late. Yeah. The VOD will be up, so Yogi, so you can go back and check it. But a huge thanks to MelissaInDeNile for having me on. Very much appreciated. With Alison McLean. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so we're gonna carry on, guys. Um, we'll be doing our 4K follower party after this. I'm just gonna go get some food real quick. So like maybe like 5 minutes. And a food and a drink, and then I'll be right back. So let me put the BRB up, and we could run ads as well. How are we for ads? Oh yeah, we'll run the ads as well, so we'll get those out of the way. So yeah, stick around. I hope you enjoyed it. 4K, yeah, 4K followers, yeah, 4K followers. We'll be doing some giveaways. We got some stickers, all that kind of stuff. We'll play some games. We might do some radio stuff. We're gonna see if Entropic Universe can detect my radio signal. Hi, buddy boy. You want to come and say hello? Come on, have you come? Ah, look, we have a visitor. Have a visitor. Are you a good boy? Oh, here we go, guys. Look who it is. Who's that handsome fella, hey? Oh, you're putting on a proper show. Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you. Yeah. I'm coming out for dinner, okay? All right, guys. So we'll be right back in I'll be right back in like 5 minutes, and I'm gonna run the ads as well, so we'll get those out of the way. Nature Astronomy, and I'll include links to the paper and a cool article over at phys.org in the description so that you can learn more. That's today's video. I will see you back here tomorrow. Imagine two spacecraft flying around the sun in formation autonomously with such precision that the one nearer to the sun can create an artificial eclipse for the trailing spacecraft 150 meters behind it for up to 6 hours at a time. That's exactly what ESA's Proba 3 mission did back in March. The two spacecraft are the Occulter, which has a 1.4 meter large disk that it carries to create the shadow, and the coronagraph that sits 150 meters back in this shadow to gather data. The shadow is just 8 centimeters across by the time it gets to the coronagraph, and incredibly, the spacecraft are able to hold their relative positions to within just a single millimeter over long periods of time and without intervention from the ground. By creating an artificial solar eclipse like this, scientists can examine the sun's corona, which is usually very hard to see because of the intense light from the sun itself. The corona, which is the outermost part of the sun's atmosphere, has temperatures over 1,000,000 degrees Celsius, while the surface below is much cooler. Why this should be the case has puzzled scientists for decades. Also, studying and understanding the corona will give us insights into coronal mass ejections, which are huge ejections of particles from the sun that give us aurora, but that also pose a threat to satellites, communication, power transmission, and navigation systems here on Earth. Proba 3 carries 3 instruments: an optical camera that captures images of the corona, DARPA, a digital radiometer that can measure the total energy coming from the sun, and 3Ds that will measure the direction and energy of electrons in the Earth's radiation belts. The mission is still in the commissioning phase, but it's already created some incredible images and promises to help us learn much more about our star. Almost as exciting as the solar science is the demonstration of autonomous precision flying that will have applications in many other constellations of satellites for a range of scientific missions. That's today's video. I will see you back here tomorrow. I was in San Diego recently, and the beaches were closed due to high levels of bacteria from pollution. What shocked me was that I hadn't heard about the decades-long pollution crisis that's led to these closures. The problem is long and complex, but the short version is that rapid urbanization and population growth in Tijuana has overwhelmed already inadequate sewage treatment plants on both sides of the US-Mexico border and resulted in billions of gallons of untreated sewage and industrial pollution being released into the Tijuana River and from there into the Pacific Ocean. Obviously, this has a massive negative effect on the river, the people and wildlife living in the area, and the marine ecosystem. It's now so bad that scientists are worried about aerosolized bacteria getting people in the region sick, even if they don't go in the water. Okay, so what does this have to do with space? Well, scientists at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory have come up with a way to help track contaminants in the water using an instrument called EMIT that's mounted on the International Space Station. Originally intended to map minerals and dust across the Earth's deserts, the scientists used EMIT to image the Tijuana River estuary and its outflow into the Pacific Ocean and went through it pixel by pixel. They found that they could identify molecules that were present in the water, including a marker for cyanobacteria that makes people and wildlife sick. They cross-referenced their findings with water testing that was performed in the area of each pixel and confirmed that their results agreed with the results from the testing locations. What's super cool about this is that EMIT can be used to effectively monitor a much larger area than can be tested by hand and can also show areas of high pollutant concentration that are currently not being tested. Huge props to the scientists that were able to use an instrument designed to measure dust on land to help out with an urgent pollution crisis in the water. If you want to learn more about the story behind the Tijuana River pollution crisis, I've included a link in the description to get you started, and there's also a link to details on the EMIT instrument. That's today's video. Have a great weekend. I will see you back here on Monday. Let's talk about how the proposed cuts to NASA's budget could affect space exploration and astronomy if they're passed. ESA announced at a press conference today that at least 3 large joint space missions will be threatened by the budget cuts. LISA, a space-based gravitational wave detector that will study black holes and binary stars to test Einstein's theory of general relativity and was expected to be operational by the early 2030s. Envision, a mission to orbit and study Venus in detail. And New Athena, the largest ever X-ray observatory that could continue the legacy and amazing science done by the Chandra X-ray Observatory. These missions have been in planning and development for at least 10 years, and ESA said that the proposed cuts to NASA would mean the missions would either have to be frozen or possibly cancelled. A further 16 joint missions would be affected by the cuts, but ESA sees ways of mitigating some of the damage there. The effect on multiple NASA missions has been documented elsewhere, but today the director of the National Solar Observatory announced at the American Astronomical Society meeting in Alaska that the world's most powerful solar telescope, the Daniel K. Inouye Solar Telescope, or DKIST, would no longer be able to operate if the current budget request passes. The observatory cost about $30 million to operate this year, and the director said there's no way to operate such a complex facility on the $13 million that's proposed for 2026. The telescope was 25 years in the making and only came online in 2020 and represents the best ground-based tool we have to study our star. These are just a few of the impacts of the proposed cuts, and there are many, many more. The Planetary Society has done a great job of cataloguing the impacts, and I recommend heading over to their website if you want to learn more. I don't think anybody would argue that we shouldn't try to be as efficient as possible with taxpayer dollars and review what we're spending on science in the US, but the kind of random wholesale cuts to NASA and all the other science that are being proposed make absolutely no sense to me. I hardly need to say this, as I'm sure you're already on your way down to the comments, but please let me know what you think below. That's today's video. I will see you back here tomorrow. Sicily's Mount Etna erupted on June the 2nd, and ESA's Copernicus Sentinel satellites were there to capture the event from space. The first image that you can see here is an optical image from ESA's Copernicus Sentinel-2. The huge plume of ash, gas, and rock is clearly visible in the image, along with a significant lava flow. According to reports, the eruption caught tourists by surprise and sent many racing for cover. The second image is from the Copernicus Sentinel-5P mission that captured the huge sulfur dioxide emissions from the eruption of Europe's largest volcano. Until June the 2nd, Mount Etna had been quiet since its last major eruption in 2014. Guys, I'm back.
Scientists report
I'm back.
that the northern
Back. Here I am. Oh, that's the wrong camera. That's terrible. Nobody wants to see that. This will be the right one? Yeah. There we go. That's the right one. Oh my gosh! All right, guys. Thank you for waiting. I just had some delicious pasta, and oh, it was really good. Uh, the first time I got a universal remote control, I thought to myself, "This changes everything." That's bad. You know that's bad, right? It's bad. All right, guys. Let's change the stream title. Let's change the stream title to let's see, 4K follower celebration. Um. Oh my gosh. Wait. Yeah. Let me see. Look, doggo walk nice with adventures. Have a fun walk with the doggo. That dad joke is good. Do you want it? You guys want? I'll give you a free one. Wait, where's my dad joke 3000? I got the dad joke 3000 here.
I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down.
See, because it's about anti-gravity. You know that. Yeah. Okay. Well, it was lovely. It was lovely speaking to Melissa in Denial. I mean, fantastic stuff. Thank you to everybody who followed, resubscribed, and did all those things during the collab. It was I couldn't acknowledge you at the time, but it was very much appreciated. Visionary, how you doing? Good to see you. Guys, play the drop game, drop for 99 or more, and you do get a free 1-month gift of subs to the channel. We're going to do some radio stuff here in a minute. Entropic is going to see if he can detect our signal. But first, before we get into radio and video killing the radio star, let's wait. Where did my browser crash? Let's go over here and let's talk about the astronomy picture of the day. See, there it is. Sunspots in it. I also have a delicious piece for a dessert, which I didn't have yet. I have a delicious piece of apple cake that Mini Nerd made yesterday. Well, it's called like apple snack cake or something. Absolutely 10 out of 10. Would highly recommend. Also, guys, make sure you're following all the friendos. Obviously, you should be following Melissa in Denial because we were literally over there. Apple cake, yes. Make sure you follow Melissa in Denial. She's a really great streamer. Like as we said at the beginning of the collab, we did get to hang out at TwitchCon. It was really great, and it was nice to meet Melissa in person. I'm not sure. I should have asked if she's going to go this year. I'm actually not sure I'm going to go myself, but we'll see. Oh my God. It's pretty good. Okay, this right here is the sunspot region on the sun. Sunspot. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Oh, I think also in other good news, I believe there's a launch for us to watch this evening. The hand is here. Could I give you that one to take away? Almost whacked it into your head. Mini Nerd's coming with the hot beverages. It's been chilly here today. It's been chilly. It's a beautiful evening. Still cloudy, but oh my gosh. Manchester, how you doing? Good to see you. Guys, if I didn't say hi when you were coming in earlier, then you know why. It's just difficult with the live stream. So no offense was meant to anybody. And if you're watching, I really appreciate the support. So sunspots. This is AR4478, a giant sunspot group. I like the Beatles. Right now, one of the largest sunspot groups in recent history is crossing the sun. Active region 4478 is not only big, it's violent. It's like kaiju sunspots, showing tangled magnetic fields capable of throwing off huge clouds of particles into the solar system. Some of these coronal mass ejections might impact the Earth. At the extreme, these solar storms could cause some of Earth-orbiting satellites to malfunction, the Earth's atmosphere to slightly distort, and electrical power grids to surge. When impacting Earth's upper atmosphere, these particles can produce beautiful auroras. Pictured here, AR4478 and its dark sunspots were captured in visible light a few days ago from Barcelona in Spain. Almost as large as AR3664, which I don't know if you remember that sunspot, but I think it was Third Rock Astronomy that was taking pictures of that sunspot group and sharing them. Absolutely amazing images. It's so big that it is visible just with glasses, especially designed to view solar eclipses. So yeah, don't look through your glasses at the sun. What the heck is a sunspot? A sunspot is a part of the surface of the sun which is cooler than the surrounding gas, and so it appears darker. That's what a sunspot is. The way it works is the magnetic field lines. So over the course of 11 years, the sunspot activity goes from a minimum to a maximum. It's related to the magnetic field in the sun. As the magnetic fields get twisted in the sun, you can kind of think of it like they get wrapped up and they start to kind of, you know how if you wrap a wire too tightly, it won't stay wrapped. It kind of wants to spring around. This is like that, and these magnetic field lines poke through the surface of the sun, and they prevent this gas from, or this plasma from mixing with the surrounding plasma. So they kind of trap this gas in here, and it cools down. It's still not cold, like it's still can hot, right? But it's cooler than the surrounding gas, and so it appears dark, and then you get sunspots. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'm having some apple pie as well, apple cake as well. Mm-hmm. That answer your question, visionary? Thank you. Gosh, I'm being fated with chocolate now as well. Well, that looks good. Uh yeah, this is a beautiful image. You can see the granules really clearly on the surface of the sun as well. Like convective cells. BEA beautiful. This week's sky-gazing enthusiasts all over the globe will not only be tracking AR 4478 during the day, but keenly watching night skies for its corresponding bright auroras. Let's have a quick look and see what the latest is on AR 4478. A beta gamma delta magnetic sunspot region that has been the primary driver of solar activity in late June of 2026. Initially detected on the far side and later rotating in the view near the southeastern limb, it is characterized by its immense size and complex magnetic structure, which gives it the potential for strong M-class and X-class flares. So the flares are what are going to give us aurora. Hmm. Here we go. Space Weather Live. Let's see if the spots are still there. I just want, wait. Auroral activity, solar activity. Is that what I want? Oh, yeah. Okay, so in this image, 4478 is right here. You can see it's huge. And then if you want to see the magnetic disturbance that's associated with all of these, probably all these sunspots right here, you can see there's a big, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but there's a big region right here. And there's a big region right here. And you can sort of see the, you can sort of imagine where the magnetic field is going here. Been a bit boring. 4475 and other reasons have been hogging the activity. Ah, nice. Black Cat's Manor, for those of you who don't know, is another person who does solar observing. And you can live on Twitch. You can go follow them and see them streaming live on Twitch. So go drop a follow. And next time Black Cat's Manor has a solar scope out, go watch. It'll be amazing. So AR 4478 has 27 sunspots. 17 in 4475, which is this region here in sort of grayish goldish, I guess it is. Still pretty active though. Drop the spot. Yeah, exactly. Had that page open, it looks different. I guess it adjusts for my position. Oh yeah? What are you sitting down? Are you standing up and I'm sitting down? You think that's why it looks different? Or what are you thinking? Let me know, Magister. I don't know if it knows my position, to be honest. I'm not sure if it knows my position. I think I have my positional information blocked, so lots of little bubbles going on, but nothing big. Oh, nice. Looked different because it needed a refresh. See? It is because of your position. Your position was too far away from the mouse. Yeah, I don't think this would look, even if you were on opposite sides of the, I mean, not opposite sides of the Earth, but you know what I mean. If we were separated by the diameter of the Earth, I don't think it would have a huge impact. Far from the F5. The maximum X-ray flux of the past 2 hours is C5.19. Auroral activity. This is what we want to see. KP1. Boo. Where's the predictions, though? Aurora forecast. This is what we want. Oh, KP6. 30th of June, 0900 to 1200. Is this universal time? Yeah, universal time. 0900. That's 1 a.m. for me on the 30th. 1 a.m. for me on Thursday. Oh, we were going to talk about this launch. July 28th, 7:25. Yeah, in 30 minutes we have a launch as well. I mean, it's a proper party now. And if you're wondering about the Swift mission that we said we were going to stream on Friday night, it got pushed. So it's now going to be... Oh, it's 3:23. It was 12:30 originally. Now it's 3:23. Ugh, that's brutal. That's really brutal. I mean... Yeah, that's kind of rude. You're F5ing everything. But we can watch this launch later, though. It's not from this side. It's from the other side of the country. It's from the West Coast. From the East Coast. But yeah, we'll watch that launch. Just remind me, 7:25. Let's have a quick look and see what else. Alfredo Vidal Perez. Oh, it's just an email address. Okay. So what we like to do when we start the stream, normally, obviously today was different because we had the collab. But what we like to do when we start the stream is look at astronomy picture of the day. I stream every couple of days, so we usually have a couple to look at, and we also have this calendar that we keep up to date. Oh, this is scientific discoveries from this date in history. But we got some stuff to look at for the weekend there. We'll do that after we've finished with APOD. I think we've got at least one more APOD. Mars Marathon by Perseverance. God, you can see the tracks. Look at this. How cool is this? No. Whoa. In this recent high-rise view from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the little green dot indicated on the surface of the big red planet is the Perseverance Mars rover. Recorded on June the 13th, the car-sized six-wheeled robot was imaged a day before completing a Martian marathon, traveling a total distance of 26.218 miles since it began exploring the surface of Mars. That equivalent marathon distance was achieved by Perseverance on its mission Sol 1890, after about 5 Earth years and 4 Earth months of driving. Perseverance is continuing to hunt for biosignatures. In this high-rise image, the Mars rover's tracks can be seen leading to its location in an area west of its landing site in Jezero Crater near an ancient river delta. This might be one of my new favorite images. You could... Oh my god. How cool is that? I feel like I'm the only one that's impressed. Like, I'm going to eat some chocolates to celebrate. That's crunchy. Wow. That is really cool. Let's see if we can zoom in on the little dot. Whoa. Can you just zoom infinitely on this thing? What's the resolution of high-rise? MRO high-rise camera. The high-resolution imaging science instrument HiRISE is a camera aboard the Mars Reconnaissance Rover that provides the highest resolution images of the Martian surface. Built by Ball Aerospace, the University of Arizona, it features a half-meter primary mirror, the largest optical telescope sent beyond Earth's orbit. It achieves a scale of 25 to 32 centimeters per pixel. That's pretty crazy. It's a push broom camera using 14 CCD detector chips with time delay integration to capture a 6-kilometer wide swath in red light, with a 1.2 kilometer central swath in blue green and near infrared for color imagery. Damn, that is an impressive image. So each of these pixels is like a quarter of a meter. Wow. Ooh, that's crispy. I really like. I don't know why. I really like this image though. Kind of bonkers. Look at all these features here as well. Mars is an interesting place, that's for sure. I don't know where this links. High rise. Ooh. Ooh, that's nice too. High rise picture of the day, June the 28th, 2026. The flooded impact craters in Herbris Vallis. Herbris Vallis are a complex set of channels in the northern lowlands of Mars, just to the west of the Elysium volcanic region. God. Heck of a drive. It is a heck of a drive. Although, I mean, a marathon in 5 years and a bit is not, you know. What speed is that? I haven't even done the miles per hour calculation on average. Or kilometers, depending on how you want to measure it. Or kilometers. Yeah, that's one of my new favorite images. Being able to see those tracks like that, that's just crazy. How big are the wheels? Are like, I want to say the wheels are about this big, which is what, a foot? 30 centimeters. So that would be 1 pixel, which is that roughly what they look like? Yeah, that's what it looks like. All right. I mean, obviously this was made in a lab somewhere in a back studio. They need a rover with a Voyager battery. Right. Can't beat putting a nuclear reactor on the surface of Mars. Actually, it's not really a nuclear reactor. Nuclear battery, I guess you'd call it. How you doing, Dead Scum? It's good to see ya. Oh my gosh, guys. It is good to see all of you. We're 4K in it tonight. We're doing our usual... I think I have a splinter in my finger. Really painful. And I might have to deal with it before stream is over. I need some tweezers. Did you guys say a tweezer like you say a scissor? Which makes no sense, by the way. Hey, Schmovements. Thank you. Yeah, really excited. It's so cool that the community has, supported the streams, and we've just had an absolutely fantastic time. I don't know how long it's been. 4 years? Yeah, 4 years-ish. So, pretty amazing. Looks like the rover turns nearly 360 before each change of direction. Yeah, although maybe entropic, it's that it was doing sampling there at those where it changed direction. It was like that was a sampling point. That's why it went to that spot. Then it kind of rotates to do all the different. I don't know where the instruments are relative to each other. I mean, we could get the Lego, but maybe it's like rotating around to drill and do some other stuff. Guys, make sure you're following Irish Strong Games as well, and make sure you've downloaded and installed and paid for Rise of Piracy, because it's an amazing game. Amazing game. As this is an amazing photograph. This isn't a... See, for those of you that say, oh, I can't take pictures of the night sky because I live in a... Oh, hold on. There's Darwin's meds. Oh, 1 sec. Hold on a sec, guys. Darwin needs his medication. Let me go see if it's sorted. Okay, yeah, Darwin got his meds already. Okay, all systems go. Macaholic. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, a mini nerd confirms indeed it is a splinter in my finger. So, Milky Way urban style. In a cosmic vista you can never see, the Milky Way arcs through the night above Sol. Wait, what? In a cosmic vista you can never see. Am I not? Okay. Arcs through the night above Seoul, South Korea. Remarkably, this urban night skyscape reveals our galaxy's faintly luminous central region and dark obscuring dust clouds in spite of the brilliant city lights. To overcome the extreme light pollution of the metropolitan area and record faint cosmic details, an infrared filter was used to capture the night scene in a single exposure. While the filter transmits predominantly infrared light, it still passes some visible light to give the scene a natural appearance. The view is from Seoul's Tuksiom Hangang Park. Probably butchered that, apologies. With the Han River and a well-lit railway bridge across the foreground. The 1-2-3-story Lotte World Tower looms in the distance, the tallest building in South Korea. This is by Shingu Lee. Let's see. Shingu Lee has an Instagram. The lazy geek shoots from Tokyo, so I can't complain from my Portal 5. Ah. Oh, there's some nice images in here. Yeah, you did get astronomy picture of the day. Wait, was that like a sea star or something? It's kind of crazy what you can do with these things. Astronomy, telescope observing, and space are niche communities doesn't appeal to most people. Alrighty. Usually I drop these people a follow for their apodness. Yeah, there's some cool stuff in here. All right. I think that should be it for a pod. Should have podded our way back. Yeah. This is anti-crepuscular rays. Cliff41, how you doing? Welcome in. Good to see you. Good to see you. I don't know how niche space is, though, Schmovements. I mean, it depends what aspects of it. Like, the Artemis 2 was huge, right? I think people are interested in it depends what aspects you mean. Like, gravitational wave detectors. Yeah, probably not everybody's cup of tea. But, like, observing, watching the Artemis 2 was clearly a hugely popular thing. So, it just depends. All right, we're done. We're done with that. We got 20 minutes until this. So let's do the calendar. We'll get the calendar out of the way. Then probably we'll do a sticker giveaway. I do not have the 4K patches sorted out yet. So I spent the day actually tidying this office because it was an absolute pigsty. Offense to pigs everywhere. But I didn't get around to making the patches. So the patch giveaway will happen in probably like Tuesday's stream. During this week as well, I also want to announce, so this week Mini Nerd is at camp, and I do not have to drop her off in the mornings. Dr. Nerd is going to drop her off. So that means I should be free to do some to work on the solar telescope, the solar spectroheliograph, and figure out how that works. So look for some daytime streams this week. I also don't have to pick Mini up until like 4, so I have pretty much a full day where we can do some live working on the spectrohelioscope. But those will just be ad hoc. I will let you know in the Discord when I'm going to do those and go live. It'll probably be like an IRL stream, I suppose, because yeah, because I'm going to need to move around a lot and put the. We actually have to watch a video and figure out how this thing works, because you do like a drift scan of the sun. I've no idea how you set that up exactly. I mean, I have a suspicion, but we need to figure out how the software works that is going to piece that whole thing back together, and it should be super cool though, and we should be able to get our first spectrum of the sun. Okay, for those of you who are interested in science history, June the 26th, Friday, 2017, insomnia medication may end vegetative states. Scientists from the Michigan University of Medicine published their research on the use of a common insomnia medication to treat patients in sustained vegetative states. The drug, called Zolpidem, may also treat symptoms of nearly 20 other neurodegenerative disorders, though experts believe much more testing is required. MelissaInDeNile, what an absolute shock. Welcome in. Welcome in, MelissaInDeNile. How was your stream today? What were you up to? Tell us. Tell us all the things. Tell us all the things. Welcome in, MelissaInDeNile. You're back. It is good to see you. Thanks again so much for having me on earlier, and such an interesting chat that we had. I really enjoyed it. And hopefully many more collabs to come. And we were saying I forgot to ask you if you're coming to. You're talking to a cool astronomer. Nice, nice. I knew there had to be one somewhere. Would I know him or no? Wow, that drop is going crazy. That could be one that takes a while to come back down. Oh, there was a collision. There was a mid-air collision. I think I might had too much caffeine. The way the liquids suck, you gotta moderate your caffeine intake. I was gonna ask if you're planning on going to TwitchCon this year, MelissaInDeNile. I forgot to ask you in the collab. But yeah, welcome in, Raiders. If you happen to miss the collab and you didn't see my intro, I'm Nerduino. I'm an astronomer. I have a PhD from the University of Illinois, and I worked at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab for about 10 years. I worked on a mission called Planck and a bunch of other cool stuff. Now, on this stream, we talk about the latest space and astronomy research and papers. We watch live launches. There's actually a launch coming in less than 20 minutes. We'll be watching a live launch of a Falcon 9 from Florida, from Cape Canaveral. Those are always fun to watch. We watched like the whole of the Artemis thing, where I was live for the whole of the Artemis 2 mission. We do all that kind of stuff. We do some live astrophotography from the backyard. I have a small observatory in the backyard. Just a shed, really. I call it an observatory. It's just a shed with a roof that rolls off. And we do some space-based games and some space-based Lego, which we desperately need to finish, the space-based Lego, because we're working on the Galaxy right now. And that's it. If that sounds cool, drop a follow. You can find your way back. We just passed 4,000 followers the other day, so we're having our 4,000 follower celebration. There will be some sticker giveaways coming up. What is an observatory? Hey, Nick Baring, how you doing? Exactly. I mean, roll off, tip off. I mean, if it was really cool, it would have a slit that opened, preferably robotically with lots of cool noises. But MelissaInDeNile, thank you for bringing the community over again. Thank you so much for having me on today. And I had a really good time. It was great to collab with you. And if you need to raid and run, go tidy up your laundry situation and get some food. I totally understand. But yeah, welcome in, Raiders. It's good to see you. Okay, we had that launch. Oh yeah, we were just learning. So for those of you that just came in on the raid, you need your ice cream cone. Yes, exactly. I'm eating a Trader Joe's chocolate toffee crunch thing. It's delicious, but not the ideal thing to crunch on right in front of the mic. I feel like I might break a tooth as well. Touch wood. I shouldn't have said that. Oh my god. Hold on. Okay, that was a bit crunchier and chewier than I thought. I told you don't eat Trader Joe's corn nuts. Oh. I do love it. I do love a good Trader Joe's. The girls went on a Trader Joe's run yesterday. They came back with so much goodies. The big thing in our house is the licorice. We all love the licorice. But we were just reading, so I got this cool calendar at the start of the year. Dr. Nerd got it for me. And it has scientific discoveries from this day in history. They're all in the 21st century. They're all in the 2000s. Bacon also, yes. This one was from June the 26th, so this was Friday, 2017. I'll just read it again if you just came in. Insomnia medication may end vegetative states. Scientists from the Michigan University of Medicine published their research on the use of a common insomnia medication to treat patients in sustained vegetative states. The drug, called Zolpidem, may also treat symptoms of nearly 20 other neurodegenerative disorders, though experts believe much more testing is required. And I haven't heard anything else about it, so I guess we're 9 years in. Oh my god, you actually have Trader Joe's emotes. Okay, that's kind of crazy. That's funny, though. I need to do that. I need to get myself some... Oh my god, the crunch. Yeah, that toffee was a mistake. Saturday, June the 27th. Again, 2007. In fact, these are all from 2017. 2017, programmers equip AI systems with metaphoric language. This was in 2017. Computer engineers from the University of California, Berkeley undertook the massive task of teaching modern artificial intelligence systems such as Siri to understand and use metaphoric language. The effort represented the first attempt to create an algorithm explaining the ways in which the English language develops and employs metaphors. And also from today, June the 28th, 2017, again, Neanderthal teeth show evidence of ancient dentistry. This is right up your alley, MelissaInDeNile. Well, not exactly. It's up an adjacent alley. Oh, God, that sounds bad. Never mind. Anthropologists from the University of Kansas detailed their discovery of toothpick grooves in the dental remains of Neanderthals date back some 130,000 years, which they say serves as evidence that ancient man practiced at least rudimentary forms of dentistry. Experts believe the Neanderthal in question may have suffered from something closely resembling an impacted tooth. A very long adjacent alley. Yeah, exactly. Possibly on a different planet, but it's close. It's closer, yeah. So yeah, that's how we pass our time. All right, that's the start. The stream has officially begun. We're gonna do some sticker giveaways. I've got a few here. I've got the coveted. I've actually found two of these. I have the coveted holographic Nerduino stickers. I got two of those, and I got I actually have a B. If anyone wants the B fridge magnet, I have the old B. You remember the old B fridge magnet? Where is it? There, the B fridge magnet. And I got 4 of the regular stickers. I got 5, but one of them belongs to BitGamey from the other stream because he won one. And then yeah, so you can choose what you want if you win. You can choose. We're gonna do a giveaway. Celebrate 4,000. And now I just have to remember to have the thing. It's exclamation point give start 5M stickers, I think. Give start 5M stickers. Is that correct? It is correct. It's hello, buddy. How are you? You want to come up? Why are you barking at me? Why are you growling at me? Come on, up you come. Okay. Hey, we have a visit from our resident one and only. Hold on. Oh my God. Hi. What's up? What? What's happening? He's got Chief Bogo. Chief Bogo's here, guys. Oh my God. I don't know what just happened. I just got assaulted. Oh, that wasn't the right thing either. Anyway, guys, exclamation point join to... Wait, what happened to the sticker game? What? Thank you, BitGamey. Wait, where'd the giveaway go? Why did it... Wait, broken. It's broken. Exclamation point give start 5M sticker. This may break the thing altogether. All right, let's try that again. I don't know why it reset itself. I don't know what happened. But anyway, exclamation point join. It went off, then came back on, then went away again. Oh. Bishimoto, welcome in. Guys, you can win one of... You'll have your choice. If you win, you have your choice of a holographic sticker. This one. The regular white vinyl Nerduino sticker. Or this fridge magnet. This is an old school Nerduino. This is old school Nerduino merch right here. This is from 2 years ago at least. When we had the bees. When we still had the bees before they all absconded. And with the old logo as well. These are pretty much... you can't find these in shops anymore, let's put it that way. Yeah, so exclamation point join if you want to win one of those. And let's see, we're at 10 minutes until this. It says 7:13. It says it starts at 7:13. Oh, it's okay. Well, we're not gonna worry too much about all the promo stuff. Yeah, we'll do a few of these this evening to get rid of say thank you. Get rid of the ones we have remaining. This is it. I've got 7 items. That's it. Once we get rid of these, it's all gone. We are down. Oh, and we'll do some of these as well. We'll do a couple of patches. I don't have the 4K patches, but I do have the resistance patches that I made. Which I can't get to focus. Hang on, over here. Yeah. So we'll We'll give away a patch or two as well of these, and then I will have the actual official 4K patches to give away sometime this week. I just have to get them stitched out. I had to tidy up in here, so I actually had somewhere to put the the embroidery machine. What is the nature of Millionaire's Camp? So she just went to a filmmaking camp this week, which was amazing, and they made a short film. They made a 5-minute short movie, which was brilliant. There was 4 of them. There was 2 groups. There was 8 kids in the camp. They split into 2 groups of 4, and they made 2 movies. And obviously they had help from the camp staff. There's the place she went has a film program. It's a school that has a film program, and so those teachers helped them out. But absolutely amazing. This week's camp is Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer Camp is like a famous Pasadena institution. It actually meets just down near JPL, where we cycled around. No, she loves it as well. Great project for limited time activity. I mean, they did such a good job. They basically met each other on Monday, got to know each other, wrote a script between Monday and Tuesday, filmed it on Wednesday, edited it Thursday, and then had a showing on Friday, or a premiere on Friday. It was nuts, completely nuts. There we go. But this week's camp is called Tom Sawyer Camp. Tom Sawyer Camp, there's no screens. They go out and do activities outside. They play like capture the flag, and Oscars in just a few months. I know. They actually are going to enter the movie. There's a middle school and high school film festival here, and they're going to enter it. I think they said so. That'd be really cool. Oh, the giveaway. You got a minute, guys. 1 minute to enter the giveaway. Exclamation point join. All you have to do is send me an address. You will just need to let me know where you want the thing sent. But you can choose whether you want the holographic sticker, the white vinyl sticker, or the last of the fridge magnets, which it looks like has an official Nerdwino dirty fingerprint right in the middle of it. Yeah. That's what it's got. This is Sirius. They're launching a Sirius XM satellite. Look at the size of this beastie. It's a big satellite. Sirius XM is not messing around. That's a chunky boy right there. Wow, I didn't realize Sirius XM satellites were that big. A bit gamey, yes. Guys, 15 seconds. Exclamation point join. If you would like an opportunity to win a sticker / magnet / other sticker, you have 5 seconds. And then we're going to see. Right now, you have a 1 in 5 chance of winning. Except it's going to be bit gamey. Because it was always big. Oh, Pirate Kitty's Tavern jumping in at the last minute. Just under the gun. Welcome in, Pirate Kitty's Tavern. How you doing? And it is going to be, the winner is going to be Nick Baring. Nick Baring. Congratulations, Nick. Exclamation point win. And you let me know which one you would like, Nick Baring. Would you like the holographic, the white vinyl, or the fridge magnet? You can choose. Choose whichever one you would like. You let me know, and I will put the post-it of doom on it. Post-it with your name. The magnet, nice. That's a good choice. That is the last of its kind. It is the last of its kind. Like my pen. Back in the day when I used to make pens, I made this like cyberpunk style pen with like circuit board in the middle. It's kind of cool. I will not be giving that away. I won't be giving that away. Yeah. Make all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, Nick Baring, your name is going on the one and only extant Arduino B magnet. I'm going to put BitGamey's name on this other sticker because I know that BitGamey won this the other day. I mean, obviously, BitGamey, I've already mailed this sticker to you, but it's just sitting here on my desk, waiting to not be mailed. So it will be mailed this week. something. All right. Guys, make sure you're following Big Game as well. Surprised it hasn't arrived. Maybe the mailman got it. I know, that pesky mailman. Every time, I tell you. Every time. Are you full schedule this week, Big Gamey? Guys, make sure you're following Big Gamey. You know he's a legend. You know he's a legend. Let's get rid of the giveaway. I think we're done. And then we're 3 minutes from launch here. Sofa King Lethal. It is Sunday. Every day at 10 a.m. Central Time. The mini fridge? Oh, it'll love being on the mini fridge. So it's used, is what you're saying. It's secondhand. All right, guys. Wow, we're getting extra commentary this evening. I wonder if SiriusXM is paying for like extra chit chat as opposed to the normal Starlink launches. Bigger. Nick Baring has bigger ones. The gamey is full size, you know. But it was just love, yeah.